Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As you see from the title, as you see from what it says there from the tweet, if you came from Twitter, you see Shonen Ronin episode 36, My Hero Academia chapter 349, JJK chapter 179, Undead Unluck chapter 104, and One Piece chapter 1044. Yes, this is going to be a One Piece discussion. And perfect timing for us guests that just arrived, that we're going to show our beautiful faces. Right here. Bye. LegendDVash as myself and Kenny, the Straw Hat Kenny, is perfect timing for today's coverage. And as a special guest for today is AnikiSmash. If he's here listening, showing up yet, I don't know. But he just popped in, so it probably will give him a second. But how are we all doing today? Ah, if I'm correct, like it was 3 days ago, right? Yeah. So, we're here. Oh, it was muted. My fault, guys. I didn't unmute the stream side.
Oh,
But
whoops.
it's okay. Whoops on my end. It's been a while.
Yes, One Piece.
Yes,
One Piece.
yes. We're gonna be talking about One Piece. Not sure if this would be a consistent thing on Shonen Ronin, but I caught up over the weekend. I took the liberty to catch up from chapter 970 or 96. Well, I paused on 970, but I reread the Odin arc since I was literally at the end, and I was like, hold up, what happened with everything that's going on? And then I had to refresh myself. Then from all the stuff that I've been spoiled about the past couple of months, like I kind of had an idea out of context stuff. Then I finally read it, and I'm like, I really need to know what happened in this chapter. So I just took the plunge, and I'm so
That was a
happy I did.
good. This is a really good place
Binge.
to catch up from. That's like a
Yeah.
really good place to catch up from.
The
The
rooftop,
the
yo. That
the
rooftop
rate.
animation, yo.
Yeah.
All right,
Roof piece, as
let's
it's been dubbed.
let's leave that for later because if we
Also-
start now, we ain't gonna cover the
So,
rest of it. We ain't gonna
Also,
cover the rest of the
Kendall,
stuff.
I see your straw hat, and I raise you my straw hat bowl.
Yo, so Kendall,
Oh.
I have to throw shade to Aniki because it's funny how he brought up in his live stream. He's like, "Yo, guys, I got a straw hat bow and a chopstick, and literally didn't say where he got it, no plug, no saying Amazon, nothing. He literally just said straw hat bow and put it on the
You
side.
know
I'm
this,
like,
you know
boy,
this, you know this. I didn't
Okay.
ask, right? You know, I
Okay,
was like,
so-
I'm gonna respect it. I'm gonna just respect. I'm gonna
Here's the thing,
respect the gangster.
I'm not even gatekeeping. I'm not gatekeeping. It was a birthday gift, so I can't tell you where they got it.
Ah, fair enough. Fair enough.
yo, because chat and myself, like 5 people asked, yo, where you got it? Where you got it? Not gonna say where you got it. I was like, yep. I feel you guys. I'm the same boat. Nobody like he didn't even mention it. No plug. Like, hey guys, I don't know where you got it. In case you guys gonna ask, don't know where I got it from. It's a gift.
Oh.
I'm like, all right, cool. But he
Yeah.
just throw it to the camera and just put it on the side.
My bad. I did. It was just like I can't even tell you where I got it. So,
That's crazy.
which I do agree that the One Piece chapter can breed a lot of discussion, so it might not be the best to lead with. That
Yeah.
is true.
So what I
Mhm.
put on the rundown for today is gonna be first Undead Unluck, then JJK, then MHA, the One Piece last, because I feel like MHA and when you choose One Piece and plus JJK is gonna have the most conversation, and then under like not too much happen, just more of cool thoughts of what could happen next. So let's start off
Yeah.
with Undead Unluck. How do we
Yeah,
feel
I
about
got
that?
y'all. I got y'all. So I think so. Here's the beauty and the plight of Undead Unlock, right? Is we get into these very intricate, very well paced fight sequences, but they do happen over a course of chapters. And so we're in that spot where if you're reading casually, you may not want to read for like a couple of weeks just to kind of give the fight some time to kind of get through. But it's definitely about to pivot. This was definitely the pivot chapter of like, haha, you've given me the way that we get to the next thing kind of thing. So I would say probably the next 2 or 3 chapters rush into a conclusion of what this could be and going to the next step of what this is, because obviously this has been like a build up ever since basically beating the last season. This has kind of been like
Yeah.
a series of stacking events kind of pushing us closer to. I'm assuming it's some type of timely encounter with God or whatever entity that will be.
We beat Uma Spring, which we weren't even happy about. I don't know. Like, I don't think anybody here was happy like when we beat Spring. It was like,
damn.
All right. Even Umas can be victim to God's machinations in this.
Right.
And then boom, unruined. We're like, damn, you couldn't even be happy that like, well, at least they beat this. Nope.
No.
And
at least we got best girl back. Nope. Just
then it was, oh, by the way, since you beat the other seasons, you're still fucked.
The way I see it with this series, it's kind of like a dungeon. You go each type of level up, like next level. You know, it's kind of like SAO. You go each level 1, 2, 3, 4. But then each boss you beat, it just gets worse and worse, and like things don't get better for them. Like I haven't seen the Union or Andy shit going on. All of this going on in the past 104 chapters. Like, when has shit gotten better for them? Like, it just keeps keep stacking up.
Let's be fair about it. It's not that things couldn't have gotten better. It's that they didn't want to work together. And then when they were finally forced to work together, it was literally too late at that point.
Because they were stuck fighting under, because Billy was like, I don't want to do it your way, Juice. So peace, I'm out. I got my own organization. I'm gonna take the tables. And then the thing that helped them was that these were open quests.
Yes.
Like that did more for them than
facts.
Anything else. Because it was like, okay, everybody can be involved in these conflicts. But since we know that like they're going against effectively a fourth dimensional being, one that can like alter the rules of reality on a whim. And any rule that they have is purely a luxury in reality, because like we saw, like the whole point was to avoid revolution and go spiraling into the sun. And then it was like, yeah, but you're still spiraling into the sun. I didn't actually want you to beat the 100th challenge. Yeah. And it's like, oh, cool.
It's interesting, right? Because it's like, it's also like this God entity isn't all powerful. Because if it was all powerful, why would there be rules or conditions? Why would there be any tests or checks to begin with? So I feel like that's going to ultimately come down to something where God in and of itself is a ultimate rule kind of thing. I think that's what we're probably going to end up colliding to, or ultimate series of rules possibly that is just kind of something that needs to be challenged kind of. And I think that's kind of like the whole premise, is like challenging reality, which again, I really love Undead Unluck for. There's so many things about the way that we look at powers, seasons, logic of just like our world, and like it just completely challenges it, like not in like an unrealistic way, in like a very realistic way, as like what if zipping did this, what if everything got zipped like what if you had the ability to zip everything, what would that look like?
Part 5 Bucciarati.
Just saying.
Sticky Fingers was my favorite stand out of that though, or what was his name? Yeah, I think he went with Sticky Fingers for some reason.
Yeah,
but what I like what you brought up, Kendall, about logic, because I like how in every storytelling in any type of medium, you cannot predict human logic. You cannot predict humans. So I like how in this chapter, with this regulator sealed, he didn't expect to get affected by this human who's unhealthy. Like, he didn't expect to get sick by him or sneeze or chew. That was something that he didn't expect, and that's what I like about the aspect in any type of series, in any type of storytelling, is the idea of human logic. People, aka with the villains in a way, they never expect something like that. And when he sneezed, that's when Andy was like, oh shit, that's something that he didn't even expect to get affected by him, because he has used the other negator's powers, but him sneezing, he didn't expect that. So that's when Andy chose to get sealed, and that's when he's like, okay, if I get sealed, I could figure something out from the inside. And I like that very much, because it reminded me of when Oob from Dragon Ball GT, when Oob got sick, and when Oob got eaten from Boo, and he had to fight from the inside. So I love that very much. Like, I know not many people are fans of Dragon Ball GT, but I'm one of the stands of those. So I love that little nice Easter egg for that. Like, hey, shit, that kind of reminds me of Oob and Boo right there.
And
yeah,
that's
no, it's definitely I'm glad we started with Undead Unluck too, because this is actually gonna tie heavy into what we talk about with One Piece when we get there. But yeah, go ahead, Aniki.
What I also wanted to highlight though is that like I really like this setup being like that's immediately what I thought of was like how when the Saiyans got absorbed into Majin Buu, you had these little chambers and all of them were like kind of locked within that. And then you see that the Uma are awake, they're just kind of stuck and they can't really do anything. And they don't want to be in this position, which lets me, because we kind of had that discussion before within the series about the hierarchy of Uma when they were talking about concept types versus, you know, just the standard run-of-the-mill Uma and how they were like, oh yeah, concept types like to look down on those of us who are more rule-based, blah, blah, blah. And so this idea of regulators now coming into play being above even some of those Uma, like we saw the thirst Uma get eliminated and dehydration instantly vanished. So, or even the concept of being able to be dehydrated was gotten rid of. So
Yeah.
These Umas specifically are very likely to now rebel against God too. Because, and we've already seen that if like Uma Spring, that Uma are capable of making friends. So if Lucy and Andy can actually help these Uma get out of Seal, then what reason do they have to stay loyal to God?
Exactly.
Outside of being forced to because of programming.
And I don't really think anyone is loyal to God at this point, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Think of Arankar, think of Stern Riders and Bleach, think of the warlords in One Piece. Like they're not essentially they're aligned to but not in allegiance with, is I feel like what's really happening here. And so I feel like alignments can easily be swayed based off of a strong enough conviction. Last thing I'm gonna say on this is that I feel like Andy was a little too, it fits his character, but I feel like he was a little too hasty to get sealed. Like I feel like there was a little bit more that he could have tried to squeeze out of that situation before he just was like, oh wait, here's an answer, let me run at it. And I feel like he's shown more growth than to be exacting this kind of logic at this stage in the story. But again, it's still very much on brand for Andy's character.
And one of the things that I think part of this is based on is just the fact that we can see like Andy thinking this way. I think this is partially like his recklessness being increased because of his desperation to get Fuko back. And that is now the priority of all anything else, period, for him. And so I think that it's a little out of character in the sense that we've seen him grow and start to like cherish that existence. Right, exactly. But it's still within character because it's more like a trauma response to losing the thing that made him want to be less reckless. And one of the things that I want to talk about with this unhealthy thing, because I was just talking to my girl about it with the astral projecting. Yeah. Finding out that it's unhealthy, which we were trying to figure out what this was, like in Undead Unluck group chat that I'm in. I was talking to my girlfriend about it, trying to figure out what the reveal was going to be, because I was like, it can't be unhealed because it has to finish to a point. And then we were like, because you could see like traces of the lettering at the end of last chapter. So when we finally get the reveal for unhealthy, the way I look at it is that the reason why she was able to induce an astral projection state is that if her power is the ability to make herself slightly less or be unhealthy, I think she kind of can induce a false death state, which allows her to astral project. And while that soul is exited, you notice she doesn't have snot bubbles or anything like that. So like the unhealth aspect of her negation doesn't apply to spirits because there's no measurement of ghost health, which in turn makes you wonder if she can potentially pass plagues or inflict people with unhealthy conditions via astral projection, similar to how Unluck can be infused into Andy's parts, bullets that are then, infused with his soul, and then he shoots those, and then those bullets are the ones that carry the Unluck instead of his main body.
That's why so I think that's definitely a thing, because you think about, like, again, I'm not trying to thing, but we on a One Piece theme, so I'm gonna stick with One Piece. You have like we've seen this as a theme with Undead Unluck, where your powers get awakened deeper. More so than the book projection thing. What I was gonna say is that the development of where the idea of unhealthy can go. So yeah, I
Right.
think it would make sense to be like, all right, initial phase, I can make myself unhealthy, but with more power and control, I can project the unhealthiness onto other people. Sounds a little bit like that. Sounds a lot more on brand because again, these powers are much so they're they're only limited by your desire to limit them based on your concept of what they are. So
Also, for the One Piece theme, I'll be right back.
Copy.
nice.
In the chat, Hava said, and this seems to mean that the second pillar that came from the sun just went to ruin. But it makes it wonder what his deal was before that and what changes about him. So I was gonna actually get the same thing about
that's
that
interesting.
because the ruin and ruin just killed somebody in the last page, but then Sealed said the one who will be the king of negators. Is he talking about himself or is he talking about ruin? Because they're
I
both.
feel like he's definitely talking about ruin because he basically says, there's another one over there. So
Trafla.
the only reason I didn't put that on is because I promised I would do the trafficker thing on Thursday for Thursday's stream.
Nice
The
one. Nice
only
one.
reason, but you know what? I'm gonna match you. Give me, you know what? I'll be right back.
Little switcheroo then. I don't got no Trafla, so I have a One Piece. I have a One Piece snapback. That's all, really.
But yeah.
But yeah, it's very curious to see if Sealed meant the one who will be the king of negators is probably meant for Unruined, because that's why I assume so. But I wonder if they both have the same objections. To praise God.
This is the thing that's interesting too, is because last chapter it was King of Umas. This chapter it's King of Negators, which means that Seal has an issue to a certain degree with ego.
That's what's gonna bring up, because he had hurt his ego because of what Andy said. So now, do you think he doesn't want to be a Uma? He wants to be above the negators and Uma, so that he wants to be above both of them.
To a certain degree, I think that's kind of where we're headed. Where it's kind of looking like the more, because especially when you think about it, Seal is also taking in these people, and I wouldn't be surprised if that leads to some of their personality being consumed and taken into.
That's typically how that works with most.
Yeah, so they've got their independence, and they want to be free. So like that manifests, and because like when you think about it, even though rules often talk to humans and negators as if they're less than them, negators have far more freedom. So it makes sense that as this Uma is consuming more people and is born as a regulator who is already something that's being placed above the Uma, that it's starting to identify more with humans, and in the process will likely eventually get to a point where it would like to be higher than God, because if you can consume all the rules and make them your own, then what's the difference between Seal and God?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the inevitable.
Reminds me, I don't know if you guys actually ever finished reading Soul Eater, but that's kind of what ends up happening with Madness essentially in the world, where Krona eventually like absorbs it to the point where they're about to become a Kenshin, but they're also innately human. And then that's when we find out, again, sorry, spoilers if you haven't read Soul Eater.
It's like 15
you find
years
out
old.
The nature. Yeah, but you find out you find out the nature of what the Kenshin is. You find out the nature of what madness is in the world. And I think, like, again, that's that thing where it's like you absorb so much of the world, right? That the world then corrupts who you truly are. I think that's definitely another plausible outcome for the next set of steps. Creating basically another super, we're getting two different antagonist villain stories happening simultaneously, essentially.
Agree, because like, who is the one, like, when you praise somebody, like, it's like, for example, when you praise your parents, like, mom, dad, but you have two kids, which kid loves more? So like, this is the way I see it. With Ruin and Sealed, who's the one that actually is loyal to God the most, but who actually wants their own freedom? Because it looks like Sealed right now has more of its own ego, but Ruin just follow and obeys God. It kills, and also wants to have fun. But Seal has its own ego that before, like you said, Aniki, that last chapter said the king of all Umas, but now is the king of all negators. So is Seal hanging out with Andy now has changed his own mindset to become his own person because of what it has controlled of the Umas, and plus the human inside unhealthy, so it has gotten its own mindset now? Or is it because of what's going on with this whole negators Umas going around in Earth?
Or maybe that's just the order of things. Like, you know, a lot of times when you see deities, there's always the left hand, the right hand kind of thing. So maybe, you know, maybe there's already understanding that there is a king of the Umas and there's a king of the negators, and they have to basically coexist in some type of way, shape, or form.
That is an alternative interpretation of this too. And one of the things that I find interesting is that Ruin also introduced and like kind of confirmed vampires existing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we got another layer added to this too with the introduction of Ruin, where I'm kind of glad that for this conflict, Andy and Fuko and the Union and Under, just everybody is kind of out of it, because what this also opens the door for is just a ton of world building potential.
A lot of dialogue, conversation. I like that. Right.
Yeah.
For us to kind of figure out what's going on behind the scenes, because like Seal comes out and behaves and acts as if they're like this ancient being or a being that's always been around, but it's very clear that they have not been. So it's like that new Thursdayism, where is the world actually old, or is it just starting and everything that you have as a memory is just a byproduct of the creation of the universe, and none of that was actually real? You never know.
Yep.
So that's what that kind of reminds me of with this, because that's kind of how a lot of the rules with it being implemented worked anyway. Because if you think about how when they got the reward for language, it was done through a new Thursdayism approach, where it was like everybody's language now switches to English, and as far as everybody but negators knows, it's always been English, and that's it.
But that's what I hope happens next chapter, that Ruin and Steel has this conversation about God, about the world, and hopefully is not cut off in a comedic way by Andy throughout the conversation. Like, I hope we get like a fluid conversation about God and the world, and we actually get to know what's going on and more of the world building, and hopefully it doesn't get cut off just for the comedic effect. That's my hope for next chapter, because I'd like to know more about it.
I'll say that we don't normally have to worry about Undead Unluck sacrificing moments and stuff like that for comedy. That's something we find in a bit of more different series usually.
No, it knows very well when to take itself seriously. I love that.
So it seems like we are about to wrap up with Undead Unluck. Any more last thoughts or any more theories for next chapter or overall about this chapter?
The outside of, I think Unhealthy is either going to have to be taken out of this body and like, or we're going to eventually get something like the Uma throws up and accidentally vomits like Andy back up or something like that. But otherwise, because I think the unhealth aspect has to come into play and be utilized. And so that's about all I got for that.
I think I'll add to that I think we're getting a culmination of things that may need to happen in a certain sequence to kill Andy. I think the concept of Ruin and Unhealthy were to coexist inside of Andy, for instance, that he would be closer to being able to die, if that makes any kind of sense. So I'm kind of just side-eyeing, you know, we've seen our girl Fuko kind of not be in the picture as much, but we start seeing a lot more things that seem like they could resemble, you know, we first get introduced to someone who, for whatever reason, is Andy but better. That's kind of the way they sell Ruin to us initially. It's like, oh, it's Andy with all the same powers but better. And then then we get introduced to Unhealthy, and it's like, oh, no one's affected by this except for Unhealthy magically can defy all the rules of everything and can make people unhealthy even if they're Umas. So I'm kind of paying close attention to these little powers that are getting introduced at this stage, as I assume that we're heading in the direction of eventual conclusion with this series. I don't think this series is gonna last another 100 chapters. I think that would probably be even the upper limit of like if it did reach 100 chapters. I don't see a reason for it to be drawn out too much longer.
I don't see Undead Unluck reaching 200 either. I see maybe 150, 180 max.
Yeah.
200, I don't see it unless they add some other god or they add some type of multiverse or they add some type of universal galaxy type of gods like we're all here watching. Then I'll be like, okay, this just became some type of climatic, crazy amount of powers. Type of power spending then.
I'm okay with Undead Unluck being a shorter series. Because it feels like it's at that right level of success for a manga where the author is going to get to write what they want to write.
Yeah. Like now would be a good time for anime adaptation to start being spoken about. Even if we only get one season, I wouldn't even be mad if like, oh, we got one season, manga sales run out, finish the series, kind of maybe get a second season in like 3 years or something. Like I would understand something like that because it is a solid series. It does deserve the love. But it's not to be rude or shady. It's not JJK. It's not pulling me in the hype the same exact way as, or even Chainsaw Man, to put it next to something else more closer in comparison.
So I think, how do I put this? Undead Unluck is good. It's a series that has the ability to thrive, but it is not. And this is also
Saturday morning. It's not Saturday morning cartoon.
No. This is not to be shady to JJK and Chainsaw Man, but it's not as edgy based. It's not like,
ooh, yeah.
And if I'm honest, like JJK is probably the most meathead series in Jump right now. Like
it's trying not to be a little bit right now, but
it's trying not to be, but it ultimately it's a series that it is very much about the fights. And like you can think about that with like Shibuya, where like on reread, there's parts of Shibuya that are like, did this fight really add much to the story? But it was cool though.
Can't even say it was character development.
Like the inverse fight, that was just, it was a cool fight. But we'd seen Megumi and Itadori fight other sorcerers and curses before, so it was just like a cool moment to see them collab.
Yeah, and we already knew about what happens when Megumi loses. You know what? That's a spoiler. We already know what happens when Megumi has certain things. We didn't learn anything at all about either characters because of that fight.
Right. It was just there.
Yeah. So like to add to that, I know what you guys saying is like I'm fine with Undead Unluck being a short series, and I don't know why people are scared with Shonen Jump having series last 2-3 years, and that's fine because that means you can have another rinse and repeat of other series 200 300 chapters. Not every series need to be like One Piece, Naruto, Bleach be like 600 700,000 chapters no more.
Nah, I mean you're also gonna get more sales from a consumer knowing that I can look forward to your next work.
Yeah.
You know, oh man, this was really good. Oh, they're already working on another series. Oh man, I gotta check that out.
Well, and I think that's why Ayashimon has ended up in Weekly Shonen Jump, because Jigo Kuraku was in Jump Plus, sold well. I love Jigo Kuraku. I love the ending. I was glad that, like, this is gonna sound bad, but it was also a series like Undead Unluck that's at this level of success in Japan, that it made its sales quota. It was able to be successful, thrive. The author got to write what they wanted to write and peace out. But I also know that when the anime adaptation comes out, it's going to get some hate because it's apparently going to be only 24 episodes that's adapting 127 chapters. And I know that a lot of people won't like the ending because the ending isn't let's whoop like the way the ending is structured is one to pay off all the themes it's built up. And when your endings are focused around actually paying off the themes and the stuff that characters have been going for, that can sometimes lead to people within the audience who were watching for something different being very dissatisfied looking at Attack on Titan as an example too.
I feel like people, I feel like this is the unfortunate part where you're watching anime, right, to get to the manga, essentially. Formula wise, right? I want you to watch the anime and be encouraged to go back and buy the manga or whatever. However,
that's how they see it too as a business.
People don't understand that that's what the animation studio see this as. If you look at a lot of animes, you notice it doesn't say it will say inspired by, adaptation of. It's never saying it's trying to be one for one with anything.
Yep.
And as I constantly love to knock on, like I really did not care for, as a webtoon reader, God of High School being animated the way it got animated. But in hindsight, like many things, when I sit back and give it a chance to stew, if I had not read the webtoon and I just picked up God of High School, it is fire.
Yeah.
I wish the fights were longer, but just watching it like straight up with taking off all my filters, it is amazing. It was one of my favorite intros from that year. Like, it was, the art was good, the color was good, the splashes were good, the fights were clean, the choreography was on point. It just needed more episodes. That's all it was. It needed more episodes. It needed time to flesh out its own story more.
And that's how I felt about God of High School too. And we had a conversation about this, and I brought up God of High School to you a couple times, Bash. So I know part of you was like, God, we're back here on God of High School. But genuinely, like, we were talking about it in the group chat that was actually started by Knox from Project Manga. So there's your full tie-in chat.
Hey, shout out to Project Manga in the chat.
But we were talking about how Han versus Mori could have been the perfect finale for a 13 episode season.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, the fights are beautiful. Like, that sequence was done really well. You will never see me complaining about the way God of High School was animated. You will always see me lamenting that it had the potential to be a series that could have run and made current, like, just also like, because sometimes even I look at stuff also from the angle of, if I were running this company, how would I feel about this? And when I tell you that my business brain looks at what they did with God of High School and goes,
fumble the bag.
You left so much money on the table.
Fumble the bag, absolutely.
You fumbled so much potential revenue. Because if you had actually gotten the proper, like, let's say the first season had just been that 13 episodes adapting like that, those first 40 chapters, it would have had like that clean pace, and we would have probably had, like, a lot of people like, no, God of High School is really good. God of High School, I can't wait to see that next season. And then you would have got that.
I would have liked them to take the first two episodes to gauge the pacing of the season instead. Because I think even still after the second episode, they could have changed the pacing out, added a second cur, and they would have been fine. I think there was room to renegotiate, but also I don't see Webtoon and anyone else. It's the powers that's involved, unfortunately. I just don't see them redoing what they would have had to redo. And then the author didn't want it. So, like, again, if the author's not fighting the battle, who's gonna fight the battle? If you as a creator aren't fighting the battle for your own series, then what are you gonna do? He was satisfied with it. And for me, I was also happy that as a fan, I got to see him get the love that he so desired from the audience on a global scale, animated wise, and still get the recognition from Toriyama and be like, yo, no, I saw what you did. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly what the director and the producer said. They chose to have 13 episodes. That was their goal, and they said that they want to change the stuff in the story that he saw fit. But I'm like, if people enjoy your God of High School webtoon series and they enjoy season 1, why change up? Like, if you want to do pacing wise, that's a big difference from you saying that you want to change the story. Pacing the story, you change the wins and losses of some characters in the anime from the webtoon in the whole season 1. So that's a big difference of storytelling. But I think Ray said it back last year or 2 years ago when we reviewed God of High School. He said that Webtoon or Crunchyroll, one of them made the decision that if they do the anime and if it's good or not, it's gonna motivate people to go read the series either way, like Tower of God, like God of High School, and like other series that got adapted that year when they promoted the whole year saying it's produced by Webtoon and by Crunchyroll adaptation. So,
and yet
it sucks.
Here we are in 2022, and I don't see a Webtoon original series on the list.
The only one that's coming out this year is season 2 of Inspector, and that's the only one that actually came out good.
It's not. It's not that, man. It's fine. let's move on to the next one.
Yeah,
Let's
like we
move on
said,
to the
it was
next
just a
one, y'all.
bag fumble.
Oh, yeah, of
It was
course.
just a bag fumble.
Because it was 3 seasons easy. I don't care what anyone says. It was 3 seasons at bare minimum that they should have gotten out of just the first arc of God of High School.
God of High School had the potential to be one of those 8, 9, 10-year running series that
for sure, easily.
But you know, a good transition for this. If you want to talk about a good pace and good story that happened with it, and if you have not seen it, watch JJK Zero movie, because they did a beautiful adaptation of the JJK Zero volume, and that brings us to the JJK chapter 178 and 179 conversation.
I want to see the JJK movie so bad.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't gone to see it yet. And I need to go see it for one reason and one reason only.
It's Utah.
It had Nanami's world record is in it. And I needed to see Nanami get his 4 Black Flash record.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because before
it's good, man.
When we got that explained to us, because like they were like, Nanami was like, my personal record, it's 4 Black Flashes. Yeah, no big deal. But and I'm like, man.
How do you suggest it for anybody to go see JJK Zero movie? You haven't had the chance, go read the volume. The guys at Anime Lily Podcast, Kendall, James, and Sam did a whole review of 2 hours some change of breaking it down, non-spoiler and spoiler heavy of the movie. So go check it out. It has a great review, so I highly suggest it. But JJK, how did we enjoy the triple domain expansion?
Man,
like, okay. First, how do we feel about that cliffhanger at the end of chapter 178 last week, saying at the end, the triple domain expansion? How do we feel about the cliffhanger? Because that's some blue balls right there.
It's the movie. All I'm gonna say is the movie. That is genius writing. That was the movie. That was billing into what was going on in the meta world. That's what that was.
Okay. Like my thing about the 178 finish is that I really, really like that they all attempted it, because from a character perspective and like from what we saw out of them, they were ruthless. They wanted it, and Yuta. But that being said, when you show me 3 domains about to go off at once, with what happened, I understand it. It makes sense, but I'm a little peeved because, like,
boy, what a bait and switch!
I was like, this makes sense, having to make 3 pocket dimensions in one little space, because that's how I always describe domains as basically making a pocket dimension. Because I feel like just calling it a barrier is like a bit of an understatement for what it does. And like you can run to the edge of a domain, but a lot of domains end up creating far bigger space within them. Like a lot of domains are bigger on the inside than they are on the outside.
Yeah, because no lie, I thought it was gonna be bigger than this, and when it showed the barrier at first, I'm like, okay, that looks small. But then when it shows from the scale from the outside, I'm like, okay, that's a lot bigger than it should be. I'm like, that's good. But at the same time,
it also reemphasized the point that the barriers dimensions are also controllable. So we kind of knew that from what's her name, Sword Technique, that it's basically a interpretation of the domain expansion.
Like Miwa's new shadow style when she was like 2.21 meters.
New shadow style exactly is an interpretation of the domain. However, what we saw was at least to the point it was never confirmed. I just assumed everyone had a fixed size for the way they were trying to use the domain, but no. The two enemies in this instance was like, no, we need to create a quick, fast domain. You know, I'm gonna consider how much of the barrier is this and how wide and how quickly I need to assemble this as to not clash with the other barriers. So like there's actually a lot of thought process that goes into these domains that we were not previously kind of spoken for, only to just be teased about the domain ultimately in the end. That's what killed me. There was like even just the amount of description that went into it. And it's funny because it's like, you know, it's written in that way because there was no other way for you to do this than to basically have it narrated to you. But then you don't get anything from it. I mean, you get some cool clashes and fights, but
what I'll say is that I did like this explanation from the standpoint of we had already seen that like when they had the Dagon fight and Megumi pulled in and made his domain, that like, okay, you can already negate the attack of somebody else just by trying to create a secondary domain.
Right.
And then we see that Megumi's work on his domain, which I also kind of like that we're going this route, because it seems to me that what we're effectively doing is making sure that each character can win in their own way. Mm-hmm. And since Megumi's domain played such a large part in his battle with the receipt guy, Gaya didn't want to go that same route with Yuta and then have him utilize the same domain all over, like do a domain victory too.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And like Itadori won via just being a decent dude. So it's like, we know that that's not how this is going down here. And we're kind of seeing that play out with the savagery of this fight, especially when you think about the way like Rika just yeets that arm off. And like Yuta is kind of on that ass this fight. And we get that convergence or whatever.
Right.
And like thinning of the battle pool. But the idea that these barriers were created and then just erase each other if there's just too many stacked on top of each other. Mm-hmm. I'm like, all right, it makes sense. But I'd probably put the start of that at the middle or 3/4 of the way through a chapter so that it isn't a cliffhanger into like, come on, man.
Nah, like, that's the point. Again, yeah, think about this from a reading perspective. Yeah. If I picked up a book and I finished right there, I would have been fiending for another chapter, as we were. And then you got what you got in the next chapter. And then this chapter left on a cliffhanger too. I think it's just a thing, you know. I think it's done pretty well. But my other thing was, and maybe I'm being too critical here, but it's just like, we're gonna create a domain before Rika can react. But it's like, we already know that depending on how a domain is set up, the external or the internal is gonna be compromised in one direction or another. So it's never, unless you're Gojo, it's never gonna be. Yeah,
punch into one.
That's what I was saying. I was like, you were trying to tell me that Rika wasn't about to break whatever domain that you guys assembled anyways, was what I was kind of like thinking in my head. And then I was like, okay, maybe it's because Yuta is creating the domain itself that Rika would have maybe been a little more reluctant as to not inflict damage to Yuta. Like maybe that's what they were, but we never got the satisfaction of understanding that, because they just made it seem like, yeah, we're gonna keep him on. And I guess, time flows a little differently, so they would have had enough time. And I'm like, there's no way. You're 20 feet. 20 feet. Yeah, as a human, that sounds reasonable. This is a demon. This is a curse.
Or my guess
what's
is
20 feet to Rika?
They didn't expect her to come because maybe back in their time, they never had somebody break into domain expansion. So maybe for them, they don't know of how the current sorcerers can actually break into, like Yuji,
because
like
Yuta also.
That's
like, I feel like
why they said that in those lines. Maybe they didn't expect Rika to actually just jump in. Was my guess.
I mean, Rika wasn't the one that broke the domain, so
it was the roach. But Rika was a like you said, is a completely viable person for just showing up and being like, yeah, no, you're not putting Yuta in there without me.
Right. And it's funny because it's written that way too, right? It's written as almost as if they basically was like, and Rika responded this way, and then you hear the line from the roach of like, I want the iron, bruh. I want the smoke. That's what the roach basically pulled up and said.
Right?
The roach pulled up and said, me, I want the smoke.
Bring the taste of iron is, I want to drink your blood. I want to drink.
That's what I assume, because I'm like, I like the taste. I'm like, that sounds like very old school words of saying I want the smoke or I want the hands or something like that.
That's some vampire talk is what that is. That's some vampire talk is what that is.
What I also liked about this though is that the small detail of before going dormant, Kurorushi had reproduced by parthenogenesis. And the reason why this particular block was so cool to me is because we talked about how, or like the series has talked about how curses reform over time, and because that fear towards those concepts doesn't magically disappear. And so what we get out of this is effectively, if you're a special grade curse and you take a piece of yourself and you set it aside and you lay it dormant, the second you die, all that curse energy, instead of it dissipating nebulously and slowly recoalescing to a point, it will immediately go towards your offspring.
Right.
It immediately has a focal point to channel all the same curse energy that was ambient and helping to cause you to exist, it immediately creates space for that next curse to take the step up. Like,
Yeah.
so the fact that if a curse is strategic enough, they can kind of do that, which also means that if Mahito had kept clones active, that kind of suggests that if the main body had actually gotten destroyed by Yuji, like, but during that fight with Nobara, for instance, and obviously I don't think Mahito fully knows this because he's a new curse and hasn't had a chance to explore his abilities, but that kind of suggests that if that had happened, then all the hatred and stuff that was aimed at humanity would have dissipated and then immediately gone into the Mahito doppelganger potentially. And would have been able to still have Mahito
any
around.
residual curse that was nearby could have basically taken on the raw emotions that were Mojito's existence. Yeah, that's definitely a valid point. Also, I see Project Manga's comment in there, and I agree. I think Aniki said it best. This is a edgelord of a series. Like, everything about this is written and executed in a way to just be extremely edgy. And I think you're right. It's just taking the shonen tropes and kind of like dangling them in front of you and being like, all right, which way you think I'm gonna go with it? Like you said, a zig for a zag for a zig kind of thing. But that's good. That's good to me. I'm not saying that it works every single time, but at least so far in JJK, Giga has done a good job of just being like, I'm gonna show you this, and I'm gonna give you this, and it's never just like, it never falls flat. So it's never like, we're gonna get the triple domain expansion again. I promise you. I bet we will. But it was like, hey, let me show you an introduction to this while rectifying something else that I really want to do, and I never feel like it's taken away from the intentional direction that Gege is trying to go in.
I also want to say that shonen trope subversion is getting a lot more common in this era of Jump, because I always refer to this like people like MHA and Black Clover aren't new gen, and I'm like, no, they started what we can consider the current generation, and the generation lasts more than 3 years, guys. So, we got to go at least like 10 years before we want to call it a whole new generation of manga. But one of the things that this current generation of manga, especially within Shonen Jump, is littered with is trope subversion, from the way that a lot of the heroines are executed, from Nobara potentially being just straight up killed off instead of being used as a romantic lead, to the reason like Ochako and Deku aren't having these confession discussions being more about them both having like career focused mindsets and setting that aside, to where the only series that I feel like is still completely like tried and true to the shonen trope staples is Black Clover,
which is intentional in and of itself. It's its own play on the trope by being so heavily directed in the trope. But I think you're right. I was saying this in the episode on Thursday. I was saying that basically JJK took the test bed of what things like My Hero Academia did in the new formula, essentially, as I like to call it. Then took all the best parts of things like, Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, and JJK refined all of those things through the process that the that My Hero and stuff have been doing, and that's why JJK works so well. Like, it is a updated version of some of our greats, minus all the bad, with a bunch of new additions. Like, there's so much hints of nostalgia, but it's also still really refreshing and new to its own way.
And plus, to add to that, it's like, not to throw shade.
I love Kaiju number 8. We didn't put Kaiju number 8 on the list. Did we get a chapter this week?
We got a chapter 2 weeks ago, but there's a new chapter coming this week. So
because they're on like bi-weekly to sometimes once every 3 weeks to sometimes once a month.
Once a month. Whenever they feel like taking a break, they take a break.
But like, not to throw shade to Black Clover, for example, like that's why, like, we get it. We're in the new generation with My Hero and everything else. But with Tabata doing the short chapters and also doing the same trope of showing it, but you're not changing it up like JJK, like My Hero, it feels like you're just not up in the same contenders like other series. And that's what, for some people, like, there's some Black Clover stands out there, respect. You could love the series for what it is. For us, that we already have seen the new type of storytelling with the same shonen trope, like we've seen in JJK, My Hero, and other series, but has changed it in their own style. It's like, we want some fresh blood, but we also, with that fresh blood, we want some fresh storytelling with the same trope. And
I mean,
that's what I
we're
love
being
about it.
conditioned if we're being very 100% with ourselves. It's the same way isekais have taken over the current meta of what it is.
Ugh.
That was a very intentional decision by the anime community. And now a bunch of series that I don't care what anyone says in another time would never have gotten the light of getting an anime are currently getting animes.
Oh yeah, no. Like a lot of the isekai that like come out, it's like, that was greenlit.
Right.
All right.
Right. But y'all cancel Samurai
redo of a
8.
healer.
You cancel Samurai 8, but redo of a healer can get a whole series. It's fine. 2 seasons, right? 2 seasons, I was told
something
recently.
like that. Like, which Samurai, okay, so this is what's funny. Also, it's funny that you mentioned Samurai 8 while Nox is in the chat, because I'm pretty sure it's usually Nox who's running the project manga when he shows up in these streams.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's
mostly him.
Nox
That's
manifested it.
that's the series that Nox and I ended up like talking and kind of like forming our friendship over, because I was disappointed in a lot of Samurai 8. And I think the thing that really hurt Samurai 8 for a lot of us as readers, especially in the West, though, is knowing so many series got axed way before like the point where Samurai 8 was allowed to grow, where it just felt like this is hardcore preferential treatment for one of your authors.
And then just when it was starting to get remotely decent,
good, like around I think chapter like
just when it was like I was like, oh, I am now actually interested in the story. I'm invested in. Oh, never mind, it's canceled.
Yeah, because like we got the introducing of the Goku dude. One of the people, like one of the characters that I liked was the one who, like, and we left them behind. Like, and I should have, and to me, we should have taken them into space. But the person who didn't know what gender they were, they just talked like each hand. I thought that character was actually fascinating. We just left them behind, and then only for them to be revealed in the end that the Samurai 7 were the samurai we made along the way, and that was supposed to be an important character. So I'm like, you probably should have let that person come along. That same, because like they were, especially because they were in a similar position to Hachimaru, so where it was like,
I think the other
Samurai lasted
frustration
for 43 chapters, and a lot of series around that time got axed around the 15 or less than 20 around that time.
15 to 20 people was getting either getting greenlit for a couple more, or they were getting axed left and right. I think my other frustration was that Boruto was handed off.
Yeah.
For you to take the reins of Samurai 8. And quite frankly, I won't say I hate Boruto, but they both were mid.
Yeah.
And I'm mid might be stretching it. Lower tier mid at best. And Boruto is still trying to now refine itself. Again, I just feel very slighted. I would have rather gotten, we could have got Samurai 8 and Boruto. I would have rather him just take Boruto's realm or helms basically from the beginning, instead of waiting till they got to this critical point where, again, I've been reading it. I'm already invested at this point. I'm going to probably continue reading it because it's not terrible, but it does feel like I've been again, kind of like with Samurai 8, I've been pulled unnecessarily in a direction and not satisfied. There was no reason for Boruto to be a 600-page series. There's just absolutely no reason for it. There was enough premise already established, a world that you already built out, completely built out. Even if you want to introduce something as far as new age technology, which you then don't dive back into fully. And every time you try to, it's for half of an arc. Like, I don't really see, again, and I don't hate Boruto much to like other people's thing. I'm not going to talk about it fondly all the time, but there's actually a lot of great, unique characters, which is surprising. You wouldn't expect a series that directly takes from its own world to create another series or generation of really good characters, but then you don't get to build on that. You get good characters from other villages. It's like, oh, are you going to give us other villages? Nah, not really. We're not going to come back to that. Oh, okay, well, whatever. Are you going to go and expand on the team? Oh, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, well, there's descendants of people from the previous gen that are a little bit older and not in this class. Are you going to expand on them? And we'll give them a little side story arc here and there, but we're never going to flush out that character. What are you doing? What is this? What's this series about? Like,
Boruto is weird for me, but we're in the JJK section, so I'm going to bring it back.
Bring us back.
I'm going to bring it. My question for you guys real quick, though, is that we know that obviously Ishigori went for the kill, but are we going to assume that Uro is truly dead? Because normally when somebody dies, we get the point update total. and we didn't get that for Uro.
Reframe question.
So she does seem dead in chapter on page 16, but we don't see the count. So you are right about that. It could pop up next chapter maybe, but as you said, it didn't pop up. So maybe she's not dead, just heavily injured and put to the side, because maybe Yuji just wants to take him out next, and after come back to her.
Especially because
so is the question
is
the question just are they dead or not?
Yeah, like are you counting on Uro to be dead? Because it looks like the roach got exercised with reverse curse technique anyway, just like the previous one. So that whatever.
That was funny. The way that is drawn is actually pretty funny. I agree. I don't think that they are dead. I will stick to the rule of thumb when it comes to anime and manga. If they didn't die on screen, I'm not gonna assume that they're dead. So I'm gonna say no, but I think that was intentional. I think there was need to separate the two fighters. And I think Yuta is still trying not to show full extent of power. And I think that's kind of what the play on here is, that Yuta is still trying to not show the full extent of their power. But that might not be the case. I don't know. It seems like homie wanted the 1v1. He was like, oh yeah, thanks for taking her out kind of thing, or thanks for taking them out. It seemed like he wanted that one-on-one smoke.
Ishigori seems to have been wanting that one-on-one fight the whole time. And
yeah.
Uro was most worried about the cockroach, but we see that Uro was able to, literally grab the beam, spin it around, and toss it back at him. So him finishing her off made complete sense. Mm-hmm. What I'm curious about, though, is that we've already seen him pull out the hairs and, make the Shikigami like he did from Drub or whatever. Mm-hmm. So Yuta's seen Uro's technique a couple times by now. We see that at the end, obviously they're saying it's not replenished, but that kind of gives us the chance at any moment for him to copy and utilize, what she had, or also he should be able to use Granite Blast as this fight progressed. But I kind of think Uro has to be around because of the whole Fujiwara thing. And it kind of feels like, obviously Gege doesn't owe us an explanation on the Fujiwara and giving us a bit more history. But with us constantly bringing back these old school sorcerers, just like the contract dude was an actually old school sorcerer. And it was easy to not see him that way up until he does like the hollow wicker basket thing, where it's like, nah, dude, this dude has to be from the old era, because this isn't even simple domain. This is a domain skill specifically designed to remove sure hit techniques, not just cancel them out entirely. So
and plus, for the same thing that I hope we find out more about Yuta, because from me watching this movie this past weekend, or last week was it, it reminded me of how much Yuta, what Gojo said at the end, that Gojo and Yuta are long lost relatives. Yeah. So I'm curious to see if we're gonna find out more information about that in this arc involving the Culling games from the past people knowing about Yuta's old predecessors as well. Would that be intriguing for you to know more about Yuta's history, or you guys don't really care?
I'm okay with not getting all of it right now. I'm also of the mindset I don't even know if the cockroach is fully gone. I do think there was reverse curse energy there, but I mean that could have been some. This man can store energy inside of Rika. I don't know what just happened there. So it's just, there's so much potential with Yuta. I really love it. It's a very fun character. I just genuinely, I'm not sure, just based off of this chapter anyways. I'm kind of like I don't really want to run to a conclusion or another at this point. I am very interested in kind of seeing just what the next two chapters, specifically the next two chapters, I think are going to be interesting. I don't know if the fight's finished in two chapters, but I feel like the next two chapters are going to tell us a lot about everything that's going on, specifically with Yuta and what this fight is supposed to be. Yuta does a lot of self-narration early on in this fight, and that's kind of departed at the moment. So I'm assuming at some point Yuta's going to start kind of like talking again and assuming control. I don't feel like Yuta's lost control, but that's the thing, is I feel like Yuta's been in control of this match the entire time.
Oh yeah, he definitely has. Like, he's the one that's been.
And he knows he has his own goals to set. Another reason I think Uro is still alive. I think Yuta has their own plan on what's supposed to be happening right now, and I think that's why the fight's playing out the way the fight's playing out.
Are you saying that he's choosing who to kill and not to kill yet, because he has a purpose of when to kill each person, because he wants a type of information.
Yuta has his own plan that is different than the current plan that we have been told is the plan that they're going for. That was made very clear when Yuta came on the screen again. He was like, these rules are cute, but I've already thought about other rules that we need, and they're just as important.
And Yuta has full intents to go around and murk as many sorcerers as he needs to.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing about Yuta that I found fascinating about this. He was just like, yep, I guess I'll kill 80 sorcerers.
And he has no problem, and that's what, like, I like Yuta, and I think I saw on the timeline a couple of days ago, or I think it was on the podcast that I heard you guys talking about that. I'm fine with Yuta not being a main character, but now him being part of the main story and friends with Yuji, I'm happy that he's like a good supporting character, not a main character like Megumi, but a good type of supporting character to help Yuji with his goals and with the culling games. But he is a good addition on now, where he could do the dirty work, but also has that good personality for him to like Gojo and everyone else, and that's collab.
So Yuta is basically Shanks. That's what Yuta is right now. I'm gonna keep throwing back these One Piece references because this is One Piece day.
No, because Yuta ain't no snitch.
Comparison.
Nah,
Yuta ain't no snitch. Don't do my boy Yuta like that.
He ain't no snitch. But don't get me wrong.
Shanks is like Gojo to me.
It's not about. So he's not quite a teacher, but he has this great power and influence over what's going on in the world, and that's what I mean by he's like Shanks.
So wouldn't
he's not gonna stay
like
constant
Rayleigh?
In the story? Yeah, Rayleigh might be a little bit more apt of a reference. So he's more like, but to me they're the same type of character in my head as far as their role in the story. So yeah, Rayleigh, Shanks, these characters who show up at pivotal points, they're super strong, super relevant, but they're not the main focus. We're never going to get a whole backstory about Rayleigh because he's not part of the generation of the storytelling that's happening. Yes, we love seeing Marco, another example. We love seeing Marco on the screen, but we're never going to go and dive back into Marco's origins or whatever. That's not relevant. Even Jinbei, we're never going to get some super, super, super deep back. No, Jinbei's journey has happened, and they even say that. I've had my journey. This is the role that I'm going to take on now because I'm in the Straw Hats.
And like Jinbei being a warlord was a byproduct of him being like, I've gone on my journey with Fisher Tiger. I've seen the ways that you can protect the fisherman people. I'm gonna get political power for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this my way. So again, Jinbei, Marco, Riley. Again, think of all these other great characters who you wish would get flushed out. You know they're awesome. They're super powerful, but realistically, they're not the main character. Just like, you know,
Kid novel win.
Yeah, just like, you know, some of y'all want Kid and Law to be the main characters of the story. Just like I think Zoro's actually the main character of One Piece. You know,
that, yeah.
Oh my goodness!
But
it's not. Me I was with one of those.
True. It's not true. No, I like Luffy. I just really like Zoro.
Understandable. But with the JJK chapter itself, so we have some good thoughts, some good discussion that we gave. Any last thoughts before we jump into my hero of the two brothers of fire?
Man, as far as I'm concerned, what I need from this is more or less to figure out. One, I want to know if Granite Blast and like Ishigori's high curse energy value are tied together. Because if that's the case, then Yuta being able to properly copy his technique, in theory, would give him access to even higher reserves of cursed energy, which we know he doesn't really need. But a buff is a buff is a buff. And he's explained that he has more cursed energy than Gojo, but Gojo effectively has higher mana regen. So,
and yeah. I like that
which I'm sure affects the technique. I'm sure that just affects technique. So the question is it a right fit technique wise for him?
Another thing, because if it costs too much mana, he might not ever want to use it. Which I also like the fact that we got the conditions that let us know that domains. That's the other thing that I want to kind of just talk about is curse techniques not being fully operable after you utilize a domain.
Yeah, that was. I'm glad they kind of hinted to that, but I'm glad they specifically explicitly stated that.
Explain it, because that was my dream, is that what happens if you do domain, like, are you flesh out of curse energy to do curse technique, or could you only do curse energy because you have to replenish your curse technique?
Right. And then we never had a clear picture because our two main references are the Unstoppable Gojo and Megumi, which we know that it wasn't up full on, so there was bound to be kickback for Megumi regardless, just based off of the nature. So we never had like a true concept flushed out there. So yeah, I'm definitely glad that they kind of was like distinctively like, no, there's a moment, even if it's just a moment, there's a moment of you can't, and it's not just like, it's like you can't do anything. Is what was said, is like you don't have access to it.
What I'll say also makes Megumi's domain unique too now is that he doesn't actually create pocket dimensions anymore.
Yes.
And that's why he picked the gymnasium, because he was like, boom, I can just slap my shadows and this is it, which means that while Sukuna wants something that Megumi has, the principles of Megumi's domain are going to be similar to the principles of Sukuna's. Because Megumi's domain doesn't give him a surefire hit, and it doesn't create its own dimension. So like while technically Sukuna still has like a surefire hit, if the Chimera Shadow Garden works the way it seems to, then Megumi gets around the surefire hit by just being able to make enough duplicates that you still get hit.
Yeah.
Because he made a bunch of frogs that bound him instead of it just being a single frog.
Yeah. Because I think the ultimate completion of his form is that he's always present and never present in the shadow.
Yeah.
Which means you would never be able to hit him. He'd literally effectively be unhittable in the complete form of his domain. I think you're right. It turns into Megumi can weave through shadows, any shadow at any time, because he can already do the fading in the shadows just because thing. So all that means is like upping it to another level and probably letting him just like kind of use shadows for teleportation, so he can kind of pop up wherever, because we know that Gojo uses teleportation spells too. So at that point, shadow travel and being able to just pop things out left and right is the new thing. And the thing about his domain is that it'll make it so that he has unlimited Shikigami, which explains why it's the bottomless well. Which would be cool if he could rebirth, if he could also birth Shikigamis, because we know that his Shikigamis are birthed specifically from the shadows. It'd be interesting to see if he can create new ones that have never existed and different stuff. We don't know if this domain expansion is unique to, we assume so based off of the nature of things, unique to him, but is it unique to the power? Because this power isn't unique to him. This power is inherited power. So it'd be nice to kind of learn a little bit more about that.
We do know that when he combines Nue and Gamma, that he creates those winged frogs.
Yeah,
and that's where the bottomless well term first came from. And he can make infinite copies of those. So I kind of want to see him combine more Shikigami in the future.
Right, but can he only combine Shikigami that existed prior to? No, my thing is prior to him forming the domain, or can he create all new ones in the domain? Because if he could create all new ones inside of the domain, because remember it cycles, right? So if he destroys one, now they fuse together to make a more powerful one, which would mean effectively, can he then split into something else? Can he create a brand new one to add to his pot? And if he does add it to his pot, adds it to his pot, is it limiting the power, or is it no? I can just create another new one, and if it dies, they'll just fuse together, and he has a constantly evolving that will basically his power will always upscale, is what I'm kind of envisioning here.
Because he lost the snake.
Yeah, he did.
So my question is like, does he never get a snake? Does he only get those 9? Does he only now get the 2 divine dogs? Because we know one of the divine dogs died too.
Right, exactly.
And now we only see the black one. So
which is the fusion of the snake, the dog, and again, it's a chimera. Like again, the name is apt. Everything about the name is super apt. But my thing is, does it just keep fusing and defusing, or my big question is, can new life be spawned from the shadows? That is my main question about his domain.
Because for me, like we mentioned, if he can make those frog bird ones, I want to see him maybe do one where he throws up the hand seal for like Nue, and then he throws up maybe the hand seal for the wolf or Max Elephant, and then all of a sudden you get like a giant elephant that does some other stuff, and
Hell yeah, that'd be
like
intriguing.
how
Like the giant elephant
Man,
with the
just
wings. I'm like,
the
damn.
the snake, the elephant, and the new way it turned into a dragon. Like that's what I see. Like real talk.
Or
which
to
would pay
Griffin?
off that Shibuya shadow where he had like what looked like a dragon trailing his shadow. And I've been waiting for something to pay off with that because it wasn't Mahogara. Which, fun fact, there was a time period where if you Googled Mahogara, because so few people had theories and talked about them, that it would actually pull up one of my tweets as like the top 3 things that you would get.
Nice.
Oh shit, that's dope.
Nice.
So,
My one thing I hope we get to see that we didn't get it is Yuta domain expansion. Like I would like to see how it actually looks like. Does it involve Rika or does it involve his type of copy techniques that he has done over the years? Because he's technically his 2nd or 3rd year now, so it's been a year or 2 since he has done around the world. Cursed energy and cursed energy has improved since the movie, so I'm curious to see how much he has improved in his skill set. Like we know how good he is now, but I'm curious to see when he's at 100%, because we saw when Rika, when he asked 2 chapters ago, "Hey Rika, I want all my power." So like we're seeing skill set as close combat fight of Yuta, but I want to see curse technique and curse energy fully 100% with domain expansion. How does that look of Yuta? So
I think
hope to see that.
that's super a trump card, and we're either gonna get that whenever Gojo becomes a factor again, or whenever the final fight of whatever this arc is, whatever the tournament's final fight or arc is, where it's like necessary. I don't think it's even gonna get used in a fun way. I feel like, and I don't say fun like it's not gonna be animated well. I think it's gonna be used more so off of a technicality than off of like a necessity. I feel like it's just gonna end up being played out that way.
All right. So now let's jump to the Flaming Brothers. Aniki, I would like you to start first since you did a full stream of the church, and I don't want us to repeat anything that you said. So, what do you mind starting on first?
all right, so look, the main things that okay, so there's a couple. First off, I'm glad that we're finally getting Deku using Air Force for travel, for like straight up flight.
Makes sense finally.
Because believe it or not, one of the things that I've talked about extensively is how having access to Fajin should give Deku access to repeated higher tier Delaware smashes that he can use for propulsion. So finally seeing that utilized and him kind of just boom, 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 like just generating it. Also like the fact that this is drawn similarly to Bakugo's explosions. Oh, so yeah, finally just him utilizing these Air Force for continuous flight. The one thing I'll say inherently, because I'm disappointed we don't have a stop clock going.
Oh, that would be so much fun to read.
Part of the reason for that is because when Mirio,
when
Mirio beat the class's ass, we had a stopwatch going for that. So we could see, like, you know, he's been doing this 5, 6, he beat most of these people in like 5, 6 seconds. And the reason for this is because I did this math, and I mentioned it in one of the chapter review, I think for 347. But mathematically, if we take the time that it took All Might to get from Camino, or to get from the bar to where he fought All for One during Camino, it was stated to take about 30 seconds, which means on the high end, it would take him about 20 minutes to get from where Toga was to where
the main stage,
the UA is.
UA is floating.
Right. So that would take about that much time. But we also know that All Might issued some orders, fought some Nomu, and did some other stuff. So it could take him even less time, which all the way on the low end, I think I managed to calc to, like, just based off Camino, might around 3 minutes and 20 to 3 minutes and 40 seconds. And if you remember, like when we had the war arc, Mirko was only in there for about 5 minutes. So it taking like 5 minutes for Deku to travel across, you know, this distance, even if he's saying I'm not fast enough right now, it's worth noting that him being able to navigate that range and get there in 3 to 4 minutes would be something that would be nice to see and just give us an idea of how much progress he's made in comparison to where All Might was back then. You know what I mean?
Also the destruction of what's going to happen over those 3 minutes while he's out of combat. It magnifies it would so magnify the effects of everything else that happens in that time frame. And then as you're cutting to different fights, the timer would change. So it's not like at 3 minutes, the 3 minute mark here isn't gonna be the 3 minute mark somewhere else. So like you can track better what's going on and when it's going on. That would be dope. If they do this after this episode, just remember Aniki said it first.
Yep.
Nah.
And then what I also wanted to highlight though is throughout the entirety of the Deku Far From Home, what some people like to call Villain Hunt, which is still like the worst name that you could have given that arc because it evokes the complete wrong mindset of what the arc is about. But during that stretch, we've got him awakening the third user's quirk. And one of the things I had talked about is if you looked at the room before Class 1A came back, we got to see everybody was sitting down in their chairs but the second user. And then it was when Ida took, Deku's hand and he's like, he needs allies. It was once Deku accepted the help of his allies and accepted his role as a leader again, more or less, or started to accept his role as a leader, is when he seems to have gotten that approval from the second user to finally use his quirk, which does beg the question. It's been about 4 to 5 days to maybe a week since Deku got back. Did he at least get to test it once? Because we see that he said, did you try to use my quirk? And he's like, yeah, I did. But we don't see that. Like, we don't know.
Like we don't know what happened. Where did he go? Because I was gonna ask you guys too. In that page, 4 to 5, he started running already. And he had this combination going on already. And the second user said, did you use my quirk? Did you use my meta ability? He said, yeah. He said, I thought that would be your last resort. And the next page, the door having all those locks, it just seems very intriguing. And also, each lock, I think I counted 9 locks. So it shows that he is the 9th user. So that's pretty dope as well.
Yep. So it's like, until you do X, Y, and Z, all these other things are kind of sealed. And that's what I've liked. So I'm glad that we've maintained that consistency with this character, that like, no, like you got to actually be worthy. You got to actually do this stuff. You have to embrace the full role of what One for All entails before he gives you, his quirk. And then paying off dividends for Sue's and Ochaka's relationship, seeing that Ida was willing to rush into the fire because Ida is Shoto's best friend. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Especially when you get to like stuff like joint training, they've got the brother thing. He was there doing the goofy pictures with Ida during Culture Festival, if you think back. So like that friendship being paid off, that color page being paid off, where if you look, it's the one with the 6 of them walking forward, where it's Ida, Ochako. It's like, I don't remember the exact layout, but basically you have like the 2 girls. So you have like Ida or Ochako and Sue, and then you have like Shoto and Ida, and then you have Bakugo and Deku, and you have it like set up based on like who the support is versus who's going to be the frontliner and their dynamic.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's kind of nice to see like this amount of payoff actually being put into these characters and their dynamics.
The consistency of representing those dynamics. I definitely agree. I also feel like there's how do I want to put this? I feel like there's something to say. So again, I said this during the episode, until Deku got to the point where he's using all of these different powers and went through his emo phase, I wouldn't have considered Deku to be top 5 for me. Anyways, isn't a top 5 character for me in his own verse. Much like I don't think Goku's a top 5 character in his own verse. And I say this because I want to point out that the emissaries still have to check Deku. Like, you were really about to injure yourself to go into the fight. I'm sorry, are we still doing this at this stage in the game?
Okay, so
are you not fully aware of the risk and ramifications of what's going on? And it's just this thing where it's like someone constantly has to tell Deku what to do. But someone constantly has to tell Deku
what I like about this.
I'm fine with that because he's still a kid. Like, he's still at the age of a high schooler. So he hasn't been, like, he doesn't know the idea of responsibility. He feels the weight on his shoulder because his mentor, his person that he idolized is All Might, the person that took everything on his own and nobody asked for help. He was always on his own. So I feel like he just took that on his own as well. And he didn't ask for nobody help. He just went out and did the same thing. He just went on the streets, take out the villains, and just look for All for One on his own. So I felt like that was right in his character footsteps as well. Because it worked. Because he followed some guy that's All Might who had the same inspiration like him. So it worked that he didn't ask for Bakugo, Shoto, Ochako, Ida for their help because he wanted to let them be safe. Just like All Might, he didn't ask for Gantorino, anybody's help to fight All for One.
Just notice that all of these references that you making it's gonna come back up in the final fight.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And one of the things that I wanted to point out though is that one of the big things that's had a lot of MHA fans online stomping their feet and being mad is like all of Deku's emotional conflicts have been resolved, and the bath scene, like the reason people hate chapter 327 so much is because they say it just washed away all of Deku's character issues. And then this chapter basically goes, so anyway, for those of you who've been paying attention, he still has these same issues.
Yeah, those issues
this self-sacrificing, this self-destructive.
Yeah,
there's like the only reason he went back is he was like, damn, okay, I'll go back.
He needs a shower. He went back for a shower.
He went back to shower. He realized how much effort everybody was going to put in to try to get him back regardless. So there's no point in trying to like fight your team while also trying to fight the bad guys.
No.
And like, because think about it, he didn't even try to fight for himself when he got back to UA. He wasn't like, yeah, I belong here. It was Ochako that had to do that for him. So it's like he was ready to walk away the whole time. And even Ida like corrects him before we get into this arc about like, we all need to do this.
Yes, yep. He has a complex. It wasn't even just Ochaka. It was the people that he had helped also putting that final nail in the coffin to be like, no, he saved me. No, he saved me. And you notice that the three people that they used represented was literally Old Man from chapter 1, episode 1. Then they showed I forgot the boy's name, and then they showed Kota. Then they showed the most recent person that he saved, and that was while he was already morphing into his dark form, essentially his emo form. So they showed the whole lifeline of like, no, even though still, and again, this goes to the idea and concept of being what is a true hero. There's a level of self-sacrifice to an unhealthy degree present in Deku, which makes him, again, it's even the vestiges that say like it makes him the best candidate. It makes like he needed to be the candidate for things to reach the point that they're reaching right now. However, it's a double-edged sword. And like I said, to me, you have to really pay close attention to that because Deku is smart. That is the first thing that we're told about Deku, is that he's smart. He's a nerd. He takes notes. He's aware. But the thing is, he lacks any type of resemblance of caution when it comes to dealing with other
self-preservation
people.
Or just in general. Because even if you think back to even the fight with Shigaraki in the Paralympic the war arc, when he's like, you're getting in my way, he's like, that's what this power is for. It doesn't matter what happens to me. Even when he's talking about like protecting his body, he doesn't think of protecting his body specifically for himself. He's thinking about protecting my body because it's a vessel for One for All, the power needed to stop All for One. At no point is he internalizing, I need to do these things carefully for my benefit. It is specifically himself looking at the power he has as a military asset that has to be utilized correctly, similar to how the US government was handling Star and Stripes Quirk with New Order. Like, this is a power that I have to protect, this power. So like now One for All is more important to him than him. And that's even what the users were highlighting while he was on the move. It's like, you're putting too much emphasis and too much like praise and weight onto our quirks and not enough focus on like how you should be utilizing them and how they're just supposed to be a part of you.
I think another good comparison with that, especially off of what you just said, is the fact that if Shigaraki had to get to a 100% form with the new powers, Deku still is nowhere close. And I say nowhere close exaggerately, but like critically, because it's critical because even if he's only at 90%, everyone else is at 100%. All the other villains are at 100%. So that 10% is huge, even if it's only 10%. But the fact of the matter here is Deku still doesn't. I don't think Deku acknowledges his power as being his power. Still, to this moment, to this very moment, even in this episode, he's like, it's still like, dude, it's your power and your body.
Because
like you have to be cognizant of what that means, because you have to be able to use the power correctly. If you're not familiar with how your body is going to respond to this, then you're not going to be able to use the best of it. But again, like we saw in the whole Dark Deku moments, is that it doesn't matter because Deku is so smart. Deku's like, even if I break my leg, I can use. He's already thinking of how to use his broken body to fight. Essentially,
yeah.
that's what Deku is doing.
He keeps calling it about the second user, third user, fourth user quirk instead of my 8th quirk, my 6th quirk, my second quirk. Instead of saying, "Oh, I haven't used a second user quirk. I haven't used," or even our quirk, or like I'm trying to master our quirk. The term of words is such a great thing. Like, for example,
because I think you have to give the Visages, the right of existence, right? Like the Visages do exist, like they do exist inside of him. They are a entity and consciousness that is actually, as far as I'm concerned, actively existing inside of Deku. So you have to acknowledge that as they are entities unto themselves.
Because like when you specifically, I remember the 5th Black Whip pinpoint, like it's not just Black Whip to him. All of these quirks are things in his mind that are borrowed. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of wild because Bakugo was like, have you made that borrowed power yours?
Yeah.
Bakugo challenges him to make the power his. And that ends up being what he was supposed to be exploring and learning throughout the second act.
For all the rest of the powers.
Because this is one of the things I like about, and this is why I also don't like the Villain Hunt arc because when you look at the way the first 20 chapters of the first saga, aka the UA beginning saga, is done, you have this exploration of Deku kind of starting to get a grip on his power, focusing it in the small areas or just putting it in his arm, etc., capitalizing on that. And then that transitions into, okay, now that you've learned how to clench your butt cheeks and yell smash, then you get the activating full cowling at a level throughout his body that he can handle. But then when you get to Act 2, which is the rise of the villain saga, which is provisional license, you get the development of shoot style. Bakugo straight up telling him he's got to make his power his own, that he can't afford to lose. And even that fight finishing because of a decision in mid-air was a way to like highlight, like, yeah, Deku's final fight is going to come down to being in the air. It's going to come down to him versus Shigaraki, his real rival, not Bakugo, who's more like a childhood friend that he's just been at odds with. So it's like we've been watching him supposed to develop this, and all he's done is develop a higher admiration for One for All while increasing his battle IQ. And it's like he's not acknowledging the pilot of the ship, which is himself. And that even goes into what his name is, where you have like the kanji for puppet in his name and stuff like that, where it's just him being super removed from his own value as a human, partially due to being bullied for so long, partially due to his mom giving up on his dream when he was 4 and all this other stuff. And no, that isn't an excuse for people to diss Deku by mentioning Asta, because that happens a lot when in context, Deku was supposed to get his quirk at 5 and Asta was supposed to get his spell book at 15. So Asta had an actual reason to keep working out and trying, whereas Deku was kind of shit on right there. Like, boom, you don't have it at 5, you're done.
So for that reason, again, to add, is like, my brother, he doesn't want to continue My Hero. All he wants to do is just watch the fights. But it's because he doesn't like the character of Deku because he's very emotional. He's crying a lot. And I'm like, is it because he's too human, bro? Like, is it because he shows too much humans type of emotion, not like other MCs that we see very shonen type? He's like, yeah, I want to see my characters like, he said like Goku, like Baki, like guy's character. And I'm like, I cool, respect that's how you want your storytelling. It's fine. And that's what I like about Deku. Like, even though we see in this chapter, like, he still sees the One for All as a thing that's not his and is borrowed, like Aniki and Kendall said. I like that about Deku because we know that within this story that we have seen is being told past tense, but us watching it, it's the past 2 years that with Deku the character, he still sees himself as a selfish character because he wants to protect others without having them be in harm's way. And that's what it shows, that he's also learning that he has to accept that change because he cannot repeat the same mistakes like All Might, because he has repeated this without doing it by himself. Because remember when he pushed his sidekick away, aka Night Eye, he told him, "Hey, I cannot have you inside the battle with me no more. It's gonna be me against All for One." And then Night Eye got hurt, or it was All Might that got hurt, and Night Eye felt to blame. So with Deku, he cannot repeat the same mistakes no more.
Again, yet he rushes in to make the same mistakes. Again, that's why I said what I said. It's such a
very
critical,
human-like, and that's what I like about it.
It is very much so that. But guess what? Bakugo is also very human-like. A lot of these characters are very human-like in a lot of different and very unique ways in the way that they choose to handle their emotions. Just like a lot, again, like people act like, oh, Bakugo's just loud and angry. Like that's a lot of y'all on the internet every day. A lot of y'all are Bakugos. Let's be honest with ourselves. Y'all got these feelings in one way, and y'all come on social media and want to be firecrackers all the time, 24/7. But that's not the point of what we're talking about. Like I said, again, it's I'm critically looking at it because I know it's a key point. Like you said, Aniki, as far as like the air fight is concerned, I do feel like that's always been, we've been kind of getting led that way from the time he had the full 100. There's just been this idea that whatever this big battle is going to come down to, there's going to be a lot of force. So there's definitely going to be some air spectacular showdown that kind of takes place in part of that fight, or it's going to be some type of critical last minute something of which Deku unlocks. But again, like I said, it's just so much to kind of look to because Deku is a traumatized main character.
Oh, hell yeah.
More so than most main characters. And it's not about him being a crybaby. Again, it's the fact that he wasn't born with this power. Like Aniki said, he was told that you're never going to be anything.
Like,
and he
that's
still
the rule.
lives. He
Even his
still
number one
lives
hero
with that.
told him that.
He
All Might told him
still
that.
lives
The
with
same
that
person.
reality every single day. Exactly. All Might even echo those sentiments. It's like, wait,
if you tell a kid they're not going to be anything, they're worthless, they're stupid,
that will
whatever,
stay with them.
It will stay with them.
yeah.
And that's the thing that kind of confuses me.
Yeah.
Like, is that a lot, and we've seen it, even when you like, and I think sometimes the psyche behind My Hero characters is a little too realistic for what a lot of people want out of a shonen. Because I think people want him to just smile through it and just like rubber always bounce back. But that godly kind of determination.
I see what you're doing there.
Not trying to hop around, fly around
Aniki,
there.
Hey, Aniki. Hey, Picasso. I like it.
Isn't something that you're going to find in humans when we have like a hard limit, because I think a lot of people don't like factoring in that My Hero is really like an alternate universe of our own universe set in the future. It's more like a flash forward than a completely separate idea. So these hard, fast, fixed rules of science being believed is just what would normally happen. Miracles don't happen in MHA. People have quirks that are powerful that can make you feel like they're achieving miracles and doing cool stuff, but like true blue miracles where like and I don't mean this as like a shade on Black Clover but it's because it has a magic system where you can kind of like pull a cat that allows you to manipulate fate kind of out of your ass if you need to, or stuff like that where a true blue miracle can happen for you in Black Clover. That's not happening for you in My Hero. Like miracles like that don't happen in JJK either. Like the closest you got to a miracle in JJK is Black Flash when you think about it. Like some sorcerers can kind of try to induce it, like Yuji managed to do it once or twice, like semi-consciously forcing Black Flashes into play. But in general, a Black Flash is just a miracle. Like it's a super rare oddity that every now and then
it's rare to happen.
And then
it's a skill-based miracle though.
Yeah,
but it's just the understanding. However, like you said, it's not normal. It is a miracle.
Like Chad said, Alvarez brought up like Bleach. Bleach just got the love now that's coming back more than it did years ago when it got axed. People are excited for Bleach to come back, and people are starting to read it. And people say like, "Oh, why is this not in the big three?" Like, motherfucker, it's been in the big three since before. People started reading it.
The thing is, the amount of people globally talking about Bleach and the amount of people that talked about it back then are completely different numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
The biggest thing about humanity, as we're talking about how humanity works, is right. We need a bad guy. I loved all three of the big three. Watching them.
Yep.
Same.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't like
and
Naruto
I was late in the game
until
too,
I didn't like
Bleach.
Naruto of the three until much later. Like
Really?
initially
Okay.
I liked Bleach and One Piece. And I
He's
really like
opposite.
ninjas. I like ninjas. So like if I always held space for Naruto. And then Naruto just quickly like it just picked up in a way that really captivated me, right? But I've always liked all three. But people are like, no, I like Naruto, therefore Bleach and One Piece suck. It's the mentality that
Right.
95%
Like,
of the
why?
internet holds.
And here's
I like
thing
My
is that-
Hero Academia, therefore Black Clover sucks. I like JJK, therefore Chainsaw Man is gonna suck. That is the mentality that a lot of people on the internet have.
And I loved, like, I'll surprise you even harder. I hit the ground running on all three series. Like,
I'm not
You don't like all
surprised.
three?
I just really I have to be
Like,
honest.
from jump.
The amount of love that I had for Bleach, because again, if you put something with swords in front of me, I'll watch it. I'm not gonna cap about that. You put any series in front of me with swords and you tell me swords is the premise of the series, I'll watch it for you.
So
So
that means
I
you
was
don't watch the
already
Sword Slime?
like
the
with
Sword
One
and Speed
Piece,
guy?
I'll watch it. I actually intend to watch it. I'm watching Orient because of that same exact reason. Like that's the only reason I'm still watching Orient. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not been that compelling so far. But like I'm gonna watch it because it's a series about swords. Like again, it's a thing. I like I said, I liked Bleach out the jump because of that. I liked One Piece. I mean, mostly because that rap was fire. And then
okay.
you know,
Yes, I'm a 4Kids believer in the 4Kids rap, 100%.
yeah,
I
that
enjoy
rap
it.
was
It's
fire.
that great. It's cringy at times, but I don't mind listening
Look,
to
back
it at least
then,
once a day. It's fun.
it was amazing. I don't care
Look,
what anyone says.
Man, you 6 years old and all of a sudden, yo.
One Piece.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like I said, I'm not surprised. I think all series are great. And again, I'll look back in hindsight and I give my love where love is deserved. And like me and Bash have said, because I love series so much, I then have to be super critical of it. So I'm gonna bash Naruto. I'm gonna bash Bleach. I'm gonna bash One Piece when I can because I love them so much. I pay that much more attention to them than I would any other series.
Like my thing is and what's funny is that what happened with me is that like some people are like, you're not harsh enough on My Hero, and I'm like, no, what happened with me with My Hero is a lot of times I got worried about stuff. And I had a conversation about this in another Discord with some people, and I was like, part of how harsh you are with My Hero depends on when you caught up. Because I caught up to My Hero during provisional license exam. Deku vs. Kachan 2 is around the time when I caught up.
Yep.
And so it's like I was coming off of Camino, I caught up on provisional license or whatever, but I had these ideas about who Bakugo would be. And I got forced to come to a head and recognize, like, no, Bakugo is more than just that angry rival character that like seems to have an inferiority complex. He is going to be more than that. He's not going to go to the dark side because yes,
Yo,
he
so
actually
many people
is.
thot he was gonna go to dark side. I'm like, why? Like, it
Well,
didn't show no
'cause
side.
You have these, like, it's such a commonly used trope that I was like, okay, now I have to sit back. And then it was like when the overhaul arc came around and you had Eri introduced and her power was explained to be rewind. And you would see people in comments and sometimes on like YouTube, stuff like that. Like this idea that Aries the Dragon Balls, Eri is the Dragon Ball. She's just going to undo things. My Hero has no stakes or consequences now because Eri exists. She's just going to rewind people when it's a trouble, blah, 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 blah. So especially if you were around during that time period, then you had to go through that. And then it's like, oh, this is going to be busted. This is going to be busted. And then it's like, nope, not busted.
You saw how
Night Eye died 3 rooms down.
You saw how that was going on last week when last week's One Piece chapter was dropping. Everybody that didn't like One Piece, One Piece is the how you even know? You don't even read the series.
I have some thoughts about that next session we do. I have some thoughts about the comments about it. That shit got me annoyed.
How you got so many opinions? People have to pick an enemy, and My Hero Academia played on that trope with Bakugo. And again, I saw through that from the time Bakugo was introduced onto the screen. I saw through that. And that's why I always have, again, one of my favorite 3 characters right there, Bakugo. Because Bakugo to me is more real. I don't care what anyone says, as far as a human being, as far as conflict and struggle is concerned, as far as having to push yourself and be that person that's pushing yourself constantly, Bakugo is a more relatable character to me than Deku ever will be.
Yes.
Well, to this point, that could change. I will still leave room for grace.
Like, and the thing was like the when Black Whip was revealed, if you were a My Hero fan week to week when that happened, you had a bunch of people screaming in your ear, this is going to be busted, he's going to break the character, Deku's going to be broken, nobody's going to stand a chance, blah, blah, blah. And then you got to NBA, and first off, it was like if you had already been noticing the Shigaraki parallels between him and Deku, like NBA was like, yeah! And so it's like once NBA hit, for a good while, people started to finally actually set aside, like especially people who had been reading week to week when NBA like popped up and stuff like that. Finally, it was like, okay, we trust our mangaka again. And or we finally trust our mangaka. But then a lot of people got caught up later. And like what I'm noticing is a lot of people who got caught up to the manga during the war arc time period or a little bit before it are the people who are the most angry about some of the stuff. Like there's some people who I've seen be angry that have been around a bit longer, but the majority of these people that I see being angry got caught up during the war arc or got caught up like a little bit before that, or maybe they caught up after once the war arc ended because everybody was like gassing it so much for a year straight. And those people have never had to sit through the having a bad theory, having wrong theories, and speculating, and then being wrong and having it completely shut down. And I always, like, my favorite thing about the war arc, specifically when it comes to the way that the series is written and why I try to avoid being hypercritical, like I see a lot of people being, is because of like the black speech bubble scene, where you remember there were so many people who were livid. Like, do you know how insanely talented you have to be as a mangaka to write a bait and switch name reveal and then do an actual one like 16 chapters later and have it be so good that the fact that you bait and switched it not even 20 chapters ago, that same year, doesn't override the actual reveal finally, because that was so much better than it would have been if it had happened when you thought it was going to. So I'm like, I got to trust the guy a little more. I can't just sit here and be like, because I'm a little worried about this one thing, I'm going to explode about it, because there's usually some kind of payoff. And there's always a trade-off to something. Like, I will always like the Mirio thing, because I didn't actually want extra pages of Mirio and Eri dealing with stuff. I didn't need pages of Eri failing, because Eri's been through enough. This character's life is moving towards a positive direction. I don't need to see her struggle, fail, and feel bad anymore.
It was good enough for me to see Lemillion back in action and move on to the very next thing. It was more than good enough.
I'm like, why did you want that? And like the main thing that I like really took away too, no horn on Eri. The biggest fear, that Dragon Ball sphere, gone, thrown away. Can't happen. No stock.
What I don't understand with the community of My Hero or One Piece or any other, like for example, with the Dabi and Shoto fight right now that's going on, you know, back to this chapter itself, the fight, people want the Dabi die or get arrested, but then I bet you if he does die or he does get arrested, fans or the audience are still not going to be satisfied, because they're going to feel like it was rushed or wasn't done well. It's like, all right, cool, it happened when you wanted, but you're still not satisfied. Like, fans cannot get what they want, or if they do get what they want, it wasn't the way you want. So like, it gets it very in a gray area. It's like, okay, cool, you're not the fucking mangaka, you're just an audience, a fan, or critic. But if you don't get what you want in that storytelling bit, you feel like you feel like it's a failure to what you read, and that's annoying in that aspect.
Yeah.
So for what Ray said in the chat, All For One is a way better villain and character than he's given credit for by wide margins. And it's because people can't see past their large hate boner to actually look at how purposely he's written to have the most punchable face in the entire series. Like, I don't think there's anybody more punchable in Jump right now. Like, as far as can you please beat this nigga's ass and get him out this story?
But that's the point. He's written for that for a reason.
Right.
Because people say, oh, he shouldn't be the villain. He shouldn't be the villain. It should be Shigaraki. I'm like, That's the point. We want to get rid of him for that reason. We want to get rid of All For One. But guess what? He's a dude that's been going on for 500 years. All For One has been trying to get rid of him. The point of the story is to get rid of him. But people have such a hatred that they want to just say he's bad. Like, no, he's bad because he's good at being bad.
Like,
look, I'm gonna say this to Alvez's comment about fixing All Might. I am 100% confident that Eri would die. I don't even need to explain that. But the timeline of when everything happened, essentially, I think the amount of exertion that would need to rewind the air quotes that far would kill her. I don't think there's enough. I don't think she could even hold that much power. And I don't think that's it's because she's young. I think that's her capacity. I think her capacity has certain limits and restraints. She has no control of it because the other thing is, if she needed to push that far in the timeline for him, she may not be able to stop. That's a far reach for her to be able to target stop that. And then on top of that, doesn't mean that the powers are gonna go back to All Might either. The powers have already been transferred.
His body himself,
so he might not even be able to handle what that is.
Yeah, so no power, and can his body also maintain it without the power? So like, can he even still be strong, or go back to his human form like that?
He can flex, but that's about it.
And the power is fading regardless. The injury just exasperated that.
Right.
I don't think people understand that.
I lean towards, like, one of the things this also did is made it so that Eri cannot even rewind All Might back to Kamino, because if you look at the size of her horn when she rewinds Mirio, it's comparable to what her horn looked like back during Overhaul arc.
Yep.
And if the most she could get out of that was rewinding somebody from effectively April to October, and it's been about from March to October, so it's been about 6 weeks. I don't think she's magically going to have a full length horn, because they likely would have kept her away from stressful environments. So if she needs a full horn to go back like 5 months, what makes you think she's going to be able to go back effectively 9 now?
9
with
years.
This at best, like 9 months if she goes back to Kamino.
No. I mean, even with
a full year if we want to get to USJ All Might.
Even with Deku's hand, again, like, people forget, like, his hand was healed, but that wasn't that long of a good. Like, it was months ago. It was just several months ago that he had destroyed his arm. So like, it wasn't that hard of a flashback. It wasn't that hard of a rewind. And again, I think it's her capacity. I don't think she ever goes beyond that. The way she's designed currently, I don't think she can ever go. I would give her a year. And when I say a year, I mean like her max potential as a young adult is probably a full year. And again, we still don't understand, and it's not been explained to us, the ramifications on her for using her power.
And my personal theory is that Eri's stockpile is something that her quirk or her storyline pushes her away from accumulating. Because my personal thought process is that it's specifically regret or like sadness that she stockpiles, and it's having that regret and sadness, and that makes it possible for her to go back. Because if you turn back time and quirks influence your personality, then in theory it would be the desire to go back or change things. And if you think back to when she accidentally activated rewind and undid the overhaul transformation, that was partially when she was thinking about how they had done so much, how they tried to save her, and she saw Mirio's cape, and she was like kind of thinking back to how things could have gone had she done things like a little differently, kind of had that flashback, and then boom, because she realized like they're going to keep trying to save me no matter what, which also meant that she realized that the correct response back then would have been to try to go with them and let Deku and Mirio try to save her. And it's like, it basically gave her that do-over and the ability to finally be saved, like she should have chosen to be the first time.
Like you brought up Aniki and Kendall, you just brought up what I was gonna say in the chat. Exactly what we brought up back in Undead Unluck. Quirks are connected to the human emotions, and that's exactly how it goes. Is how you're there in your mental state, and that's what Kenny said in the chat. Is that Eri is connected to possibly to her sadness or regret. We have what's his name? I just remember. And the guy that controls people's minds. To help Aoyama speak to overhaul.
Class talking about The new recruit from Class C? Or are you talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah. Him, the
I
regular
forget his name.
class. Aniki, you remember his name? I'm drawing blank.
Oh, hold on. Which dude?
Aizawa's apprentice.
Yes, I
Oh,
don't think
Shinzo.
yeah, Shinzo, for
There we go.
example, he said that he's been training his mind and his quirk to also know how to speak for other people, but also that also is big on your human emotion because even All For One said that I did not see any lines or any type of emotions. That means that he must have controlled his quirk with his human emotions as well for him to not skip a beat, for him to show any type of emotions or lie through Yama, and that's a big feat because for you to control your own emotions as humans, that is very difficult, and that's many props for that.
Exactly. Like Shinzo actually put in work there.
Well, technically, Shinzo's not general studies anymore. They never declared what class he's in, but he was officially promoted.
Yeah, like
he
was supposed to switch, but with the whole war going on, it's like that's another thing. I think it was in Aniki's church. I forgot who was that thing last week or 2 weeks ago, when people said that there's no stakes going on right now because we just had a war and then another war, and I'm like, yeah, it was on the timeline, and also I forgot somebody's in one of the panel of Aniki's church. I think it was a week or 2 weeks ago. Is people don't read the history books. We have gone through our own war. And then there's been a war months or weeks later still going on. And people don't understand, like, you cannot prepare for war. War happens, you have to go through it, and you cannot really, think about mourning. Like, for example, their teacher, Midnight. All right, she died. But guess what? We cannot mourn for her because there's a whole fucking war going on. There's a person calling himself a demon lord. How can you prep yourself for that? Like, there is no things that you can really prep yourself when there's a war going on, when there's a battle. When things happen like that, you have to jump to it. You can't really prep yourself. Yeah, there's prep like the students just did. They had to practice because they had time. They knew they had time. But what was more important? Mourning for a teacher or prep yourself for the time of your life that you're about to fight?
All this world needs is joy. And on that note, let's trust.
I mean, I think we hit a good note of like things outside, like, unless you guys want to also talk about the fact that there's a good chance Dabi destroyed the All Might statue in this chapter.
Oh, he definitely did.
Because like
I think that there's a greater symbolism there. I think that's gonna be resolved in next chapter, but there's a greater symbolism there that goes into the story of Dabi that's about to be told again.
Because the entire origin of this rage of his was the dream of surpassing All Might and destroying All Might's legacy, more or less, as being the next hero. So you see him like slowly like waft up, and I really love this Angel of Death vibe that you really get here, because you got him like floating up all peacefully, and then he just kicks up the heat to an insane degree once he's floating directly above the All Might statue.
Yeah, like, I feel like by next chapter we're gonna see the statue still still good, or a leg or an arm off, because like he's literally been flaming throughout that whole courtyard. There's no way that statue is still in peace without no problem.
Also, did you guys notice that a piece of Dabi's face was being shown to be falling off?
Yes, I paid very close attention, because it's also like the biggest panel in the entire chapter.
Yeah, it's just that when you look at that top panel above, the one where you really get to see up close, that's literally the face, the flesh falling off and sizzling away.
Yeah.
It shows that by the end of this flashback, or by the end of this fight, Dabi is gonna have no skin on his face.
None.
None. Like, my boy's literally gonna be no skin at all. And it just looks like, okay, Dabi, you're gonna tell your flashback, but you're gonna be looking like a zombie that's alive. Like, you literally have no skin. Like,
I mean, again, there's these awakenings of these powers and stuff. So Dabi's also due for revealing a deeper power of his own, I believe, as well as I think Todoroki is as well. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be the first of the many great fights that we're about to get.
I've had people in my chat propose, and I've seen it a couple times, the idea of Dabi having Phoenix Fire.
Ooh, that'd be
because as far as we know, his power, like everybody just kind of assumes it's cremation. But I got the Ultra Analysis book somewhere in here, but it doesn't directly state what Dabi's quirk is.
Nope. And it never does. That's one thing. That's one thing that they've been really intentional about. There's a reason that it's a different color flame. There's a reason that it's not called flame. It's just a lot of ambiguity around Dabi, and that's never been resolved.
Just like we didn't.
Even same thing with Toga. Like we thought we knew what Toga's ability was.
Also, this is the perfect segue. You ready for this? Just like we have never gotten a hard quirk box for Dabi, we never got a devil fruit box that I can recall in the entirety of One Piece for Luffy.
Never got a box for it. Never got a box for it.
Yep.
And
yes.
We've had boxes for the Ope no Mi, for Ace's Flame fruit, for the Gura Gura no Mi. We've gotten
for white beer, black beer, everyone else.
It was so common that I thought it did, and then I rewatched and I reread the first couple episodes, and I was like,
no,
why does he have this fruit casually out in the open? Like what is this?
There's I have comments for that, and I've seen people's theories because it's been on the timeline, but Ray said I think Dabi and Toya are different parts of the same person. Like Shoto is half cold heart, half cold, half hot.
I see. I also see. Yeah. That's on brand. I'm not even gonna get into why that's completely on brand, but it's Ray. So we expect
just like
from Ray.
His inside he has ice resistance instead of fire resistance, so he still gets something from both halves, just not.
Yeah, like
a good combo.
Their power remind me a lot. If anybody seen Ben 10, back as a kid, when the fire guy got sick because of Ben got sick, he became having ice power. So it kind of reminded me a lot about Dabi and the Shoto's power. So it was very symbolic when Dabi don't really get hurt when it comes to the cold, but he just has blue fire. But hopefully within this flashback, we get a better understanding of what happens and why he chose to never come back, and what is his actual quirk, and how many more skin layers is he about to burn off. Because by the end, it looks like what Dabi is just going to be a piece of muscles and bones. That's it, really. So let's just see. But for anybody,
it's okay, Vash. Don't listen to Ray. I also watched almost all of Ben 10 until they got crazy. I literally watched through Omniverse.
I didn't watch Omniverse. That's where I was like,
I watched bits and pieces. But
that's what
I wasn't digging the.
I watched
the
two
Omniverse.
Switch. Yeah, I watched two Omniverse, and then the art style hurt a lot.
All right, so for anybody that don't read One Piece, this is your segment to get out, because I'm gonna close my door too, because my girl watches One Piece, but it's not where we are right now. So for anybody that don't watch or read One Piece on the current arc of Wano, tune out right now, because this would be your segue to get out. So this is my best plug for check all the other conversations in the time code down below. But this is a One Piece conversation for the first time on the Anime podcast. I mean, the Anime channel in years, and in Shonen Ronin. So while I close my door on Kenny or Aniki, you could start on what you thought, or like thoughts overall the Wano, whichever. I'll be back.
Okay. So while Vash is doing that, I'm gonna stick to the chapter, but instead I want to talk about this cover story a little.
Yes.
Personally, I enjoyed the Germa, and I was kind of glad that it was like, on one hand, I really would have preferred some of Jinbei's crew also had been captured. On the other hand, I'm like, all right, cool. Ichiji, Reiju got out, Papa Vinsmoke got out, but we do have them losing something in both Niji and Yonji being stuck there. I'm wondering if, especially since this is a Vegapunk replication lab, what all is going to come out of this, because I don't think Big Mom can go home now. What I mean is, like, I think Big Mom almost has to follow the Straw Hats wherever or whatever they decide to do after this. And I've seen people mention how because Big Mom fell in a hole and there's the ports in Wano, that there's a chance that the Big Mom pirates would be trying to go up the Mogura port and then have that happen. So I think that like at most she would go out to sea to recover, but I don't think because if they get anywhere with this Germa tech and Big Mom gets to apply that to any of her people, there's no reason for her to not be able to like wipe out the Straw Hats and other crews like that. Just because at that point, a fully germified crew of a bunch of people who are already decent fighters sounds like a headache and a half for the Straw Hats to deal with. And because we kind of know that they also can't have a direct fight because Sanji always fights the second from the top is Smoothie. So I think that's one of the weirdest things to let us know that they're never going to have a straight up battle like they had with Kaido's crew with Big Mom's crew.
Yeah, so, I guess because Kakaguri, unless he fought Kakaguri, that don't no.
And honestly, Katakuri is a better match for Sanji than he is for Zoro because of the observation hockey thing.
Exactly. That's why I said it. But then I was just like, so Zoro fights Katakuri with Sanji, but that's not. We're not getting that again anytime soon.
Yeah. So it's like okay, and let's be real.
Oh, how about Smoothie? We haven't seen her done anything.
I don't even think Smoothie's actually. I don't think Smoothie would fight if the Straw Hat and Big Mom had to clash again.
I don't think. I think the most we're getting is a 1v1 between Luffy and Big Mom at most. Yeah.
Because we know Smoothie is I think top 3 of her right hand man, and I know Katakuri, Smoothie, and I forgot the other one. Is in the cover page. Their top 3, and I think Smoothie could do something, and I think she had a sword weapon, or I think she had like a hammer or something.
She's a swordsman. Don't
forget. I was about to say, don't forget she is indeed considered a swordsman, and also don't forget that Zoro was intentionally left out of this arc.
And my thing with because like Big Mom has no reason to get up. Like after the Punctureville Dem Punk combo, no reason for her to get up. We don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
With the bomb too, and her ending so it's like the most I can see is her forcing another fight with Luffy, and that's not going to go well for her, especially because. And I'll say it now.
I wouldn't be surprised if she pops up in this fight with Kaido right now before it's all said and done. I wouldn't be surprised, is what I'm saying.
Like I could see if that were the case, then we'd have to see Gear 6 because I know that I know he says Gear 5 is the peak of his power, but you know what you kind of notice throughout this fight? If you look at Luffy's body, specifically on page 16, when he's pulling up the ground to do the vroom and like bounce it back at Kaido, that's basically Gear 4, but without the hockey.
Wait, page
even
16?
the art animation of how it looks.
Right. So it seems like Luffy is still on that hockey timer, even though we saw a bunch of like Conqueror's hockey exploding all over the place. It just doesn't seem like he's got full-blown access to his hockey like he used to have, like he would normally have in this situation.
We've not explored Awakening X hockey honestly in the series yet, so I agree with you. Also, I like the fact that Gear 5 is introduced instead of it being called Awakening, because I think it leaves room for exactly what you said, that we're probably gonna get a Gear 6. And this is the same thing I told a couple of people last week. I ain't gonna hold y'all, no cap.
Kenny, you're breaking up. Can't hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering if it was just me. Just go back like 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, I was saying that I really feel like this was necessary. I very much so felt like last week I more or less 100% predicted this chapter, and it was off the strength that I just believe in the way that Oda does certain things. So I saw what was coming. I saw the accumulation of 1,000+ chapters. I saw a tried and true process with Oda. And I definitely agree. I feel like Gear 6 is probably something that will happen. Will we see it right now? No. Will it actually be Gear 6? Maybe not. Maybe it might be a Gear 5 complete or a Gear 5 final or a Gear 5 ace. I don't know. But there's definitely more to this air quotes Gear 5 air quotes awakening. And obviously, as we've seen with most of his forms, post Gear 2, and even with Gear 2, with all of his forms at the initial stages of using the form, there's a kickback.
Yep. And so also, I wanted to back up your point about setup real quick, though, because the second Zoro, when he used Enma, which I'm sorry for people who don't want to believe Enma is useful in the actual tool, but it's a curse sword of a high grade. It does matter.
Why does everyone hate on Enma? I don't understand.
I don't get it.
Enma helped him specifically in the sense that he was like, all right, which also, this is one of those things that I'm like, one of the things that they made clear is that Zoro is not on Odin's level yet. And that is okay. And the reason why we know that is because Odin wasn't having the hockey drainage issues that Zoro expresses and like seems to take umbrage with the entire time that like Odin was running around with Enma. But the second Zoro like was like, all right, I'm gonna trust Enma here and go all out with my hockey, and got advanced color of the Conqueror, there was no way that was going to be the final power up for Luffy. Oda would never.
That's what I said. I was like, you literally just watched 10 chapters. Let's be real. 10 chapters, and every other chapter, if not every chapter, was somebody getting a power up. You watched a fight with Law and with Kid, and you watched them both unleash a thing that we've never seen. Two things that we've never seen. Not that we're super familiar with them, but they got leveled up attacks essentially in that fight sequence, and it's just like, Luffy's done. Somebody was like, the last week, they was like, oh, Luffy, even if Luffy didn't, like, what would he have been able to do to knock out Kaido? He's been touching Kaido. No one has touched Kaido. The reason Kaido was excited was because he's not had someone to fight. He's not.
Kaido got hit and was like,
I told him there's only 3 people that could touch Kaido that was on that island there, and that was Zoro, which you probably was never gonna do again. And everyone was like giving me gas, and I was like, I didn't tell you guys that Zoro could beat Kaido. I said that Zoro touched Kaido. Lin, the only other person that literally had any type of chance, and Luffy. There was no one else on the island that could touch him.
Because, and here's my thing, is that Zoro did do well against Kaido. Like when he uses Ashura, you can see that there's cling, cling, cling. So like obviously like fighting 9 swords at once, which I kind of saw that as like being symbolic of like Zoro being to Luffy what the 9 scabbards were to Odin. Like that guard, that like a devoted,
which
is
the
most
also
devoted follower.
Which is also like an emphasis on how powerful and how strong Zoro is as a character.
Like I'm not gonna say that he's stronger than all 9 scabbards combined, but like the idea behind utilizing him that way,
his function,
right? Like it was supposed to represent that. And so then you look at like characters like Law, who like he gets his props from Kaido too. Like Kaido was like, I'm gonna hit Zoro with this club and I'm coming for your ass too because you giving me a headache. Like when he used the curtain, when he hit him with injection shot, when he tried to bite him in dragon form and Law was literally like air walking away from him. And you can see he like tried to chomp him. And then he was like, yeah, your heart should be around here. Which I'll also say that the reason why, one of the things that Oda did that was crafty, but a little annoying because it's weird for characterization purposes, is he had Law, Gamma Knife, Kaido in dragon form. And then when he got in touch range of Big Mom, he had him use counter shot on her chest when he could have used Gamma Knife on Big Mom's heart. But obviously that was to make sure that when they fought Big Mom, she wasn't weakened in any way. But it was still one of those, like, Law would be smart enough to be like, it's easier to Gamma Knife Big Mom than it is Kaido here.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like this, so it's like,
also remember Law is also an inheritor of the will of the D. Which, you know, I know that it's not open world and everyone in the verse knows it, but we as the audience know it.
Yeah, we as the audience knows it, because I still question when he said that back in Fishman Island, when he said that, if he couldn't use Conqueror Haki, he had to step down. So I'm like, So did you imply saying that you could do Conquer Haki too, my man? So like
Well,
knowing that
okay.
he knows these things more, and then knowing what happens in Wano, is your questions to prove that Oda, if he does something dope for Zoro, Luffy will always has to one top him because he's the captain.
It's like how sometimes people were like, oh yeah, Zoro and Luffy were equal post time skip because Zoro beat Hody too, and I'm like, those were two different Hodys.
No.
Yeah.
Also, let me be quite frank with you. I'm gonna get flagged for this, and this isn't Stan talking. Until this chapter, Zoro was stronger than Luffy in this fight.
Oh no, that's cap.
I don't
Nope.
That's cap.
Nope.
That's cap. But
Based off of the power-up sequence of things, and the power-up that he got from taking the drugs and everything, he was stronger than Luffy until Luffy just gear fifth.
so the main reason why I can't co-sign that one is because of how unimpressive King is. Like when you, and I know like some people just, but like actually let's think about this for a second. When we compare what King was doing compared to what Katakuri was doing, King has no Conqueror's Haki, no Awakening, and in general didn't flex his armament, didn't flex sensory Haki, nothing. Now, I do think that because one of the things that people kind of mix up too when they talk about Luffy is they'll say sharp weapons are a special weakness to him. And that's not true. It's more like just like anybody, Luffy can still be cut.
Yeah.
Not, oh, I'm super weak to like swords. And when it comes to like what we got out of Zoro, I think Zoro's stronger than some people give him credit for. But I'm one of those people who I stand by. Luffy is disturbingly clear of his crew. And this is something that has been highlighted since Thriller Bark. And more, even specifically, Enies Lobby, you could say. Because like a lot of people don't like using the dorky rating, but it's like, bro, that was pure hands just off their base with no DF.
Yeah.
Luffy's opponent is like twice as strong as the Zoro gets.
No, you're right. So again, like I said, for a moment, Zoro was stronger. That is what I'm getting at. I think for a moment he was stronger, and I think this goes back to the whole of like, if Zoro gets to be stronger, Luffy has to be stronger. Because one thing that has been made clear from the initial interaction is, I'm going to follow you out of a certain level of respect, and I'm going to keep following you as long as you are worthy of me following you. Zoro has a dying loyalty to Luffy that is completely rooted in his belief in the strength of character and strength of person that is Luffy.
Like in the chat, point to you as well. Alvis brought up, even Sawyer has said, whenever Zoro does something cool or get a power up, Oda always has Luffy do one up him, and I agree with that because I just I'm watching the current One Piece anime with my girl, her first time. We just finished Enies Lobby. We just finished all that. We right now entering through the bark. No one has mentioned in that Thriller Bark that they're going to fight Moria. The only one that mentioned that he's going to fight Moria is Luffy. Luffy knows that he always has to be the one that goes against the top dog.
But Zoro also says multiple times, I'm going to leave it to him. There's been a couple of people that they've ran into that I think Zoro could have fought the number one. Not a lot, but there's been a couple. And I think it was just an understanding that it doesn't matter because right of way is my captain needs to be your captain, essentially.
Exactly. Because
there's an Usopp line in Thriller Bark.
Is a what?
And there's an Usopp line in Thriller Bark that the anime really does a good job with. And the point of that line and what we do is more or less to set up Sabaody. But Usopp is like, damn, bros, you guys feel like Luffy is having to do way too much work lately? Like he's having to carry us and we're not doing enough. And every single person is just kind of there standing there looking sad and silent, including Zoro. And it's that particular conversation that leads to Zoro being willing to bow to Mihawk.
Yes.
Not just losing and getting scattered, but like specifically realizing
it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. And Luffy is powering up way more than everybody else. Yes.
Yeah, he's like,
I agree.
Luffy's just way ahead of all of us. We got to do something.
Yes.
To like
because Zoro capped. Like if we're being quite honest, from about Demon Zoro CP9, Zoro capped. Zoro was super capped. Like even the rest of the crew was getting like not to his level, but they were getting stronger, and Zoro was not. Like he was just strong to begin with. Obviously, you know, he's considered part of the worst gen, but like it's like he was capped. He knew like, okay, there's a limit to how much I can do by myself and still be able to say I'm the vice captain of this ship. Like there is a limit to what that is.
One more throwback line that again I just rewatch. Chopper back in Ender's lobby when Chopper brought up, hey Nami, isn't it crazy of how Luffy always goes against the big guys, like always the strong guys? And then Nami brought up, you know, I'm just paraphrasing. Nami brought up saying that, well, Luffy always knows who's to go up against, and he leaves the rest to us.
Innately seeks it out and expects his crew to clean up everybody else. And that's what it's a two-way trust. It's a very strong two-way trust. I want to say something real quick, just because I don't want it to get super lost in the comments, and I saw Goldie say it. Because I also saw someone in one of my I think, matter of fact, someone was saying it, Vash, in the no anime live chat, that it would be weird if Luffy was to like go grab the moon and smash the moon into somebody. And I was like, no, it's not. Again, I don't think y'all understand the level of intent in Luffy's design. I don't think y'all are realizing what is being set up with his powers. I don't think y'all understand the implications of Joy Boy. I don't think y'all understand the implications of Nika the Sun God. Luffy is by all means the goofy animated caricature that he is, and that is exactly why I'm super afraid of this live action series being a thing.
Look, Luffy, and I was glad when somebody just posted a thing that was like a bunch of different Popeye scenes.
Yes,
that are similar to like what happened with, but Gear 3 is the classic.
Yeah,
like
that's like
I grew up watching Soonheads, so I grew up.
Yeah, somebody made the reference to oh god, I forgot his name right now. Tom and Jerry, the cousin that used to come over, and he did the same thing to blow up the fist and punch everybody with the fist. Like again, like it's he is a caricature, and it's just this thing of like the ultimate joy kind of throwing back to the ultimate joy being the freedom of your imagination, being able to do anything. But one of my earliest thoughts when they thought about like awakening was that I always assumed that if I had to envision what the awakening of the gum no fruit was, I imagined that it would be the ability to warp the world's like dexterity, like their malleability, the flexibility of everything else, because that's what I would assume. And then when you think about that's the ultimate freedom. That's like the ultimate form of creation. That's the ultimate liberation from the rules and the reality of what the world is. And again, to throw back to Undead Unluck, rewriting the rules, bro.
And the thing is that
made me realize from Dolphy's fruit when he did the string,
the break light.
Yeah, break light. When he did the awakening of his, that's when it made me think like, cool. Luffy's Gear 4 is that I copy. What can you step up from that? What can you learn from what we, the audience, could try to bring up and theorize what Oda could do next with Luffy's fruit? It may be like, okay, you cannot bring like a whole stretchy arms, the waves and everything, but how about what is around Luffy? What he touches, he has the freedom to bring the character of that into however he wants to warp it. That's how I saw it. I never expected to actually come to fruition.
Even question Gear 4. Don't just question Gear 3. Alves, because Gear 4 is also him blowing air into his entire hockey body.
Into it. Yeah, you're right.
He can manipulate hockey, bro.
He got the inflatable arms from SpongeBob. Like, think about it. He got the SpongeBob arms from the episode when he was working out. Yeah. And my thing is like, even with Oda giving him this creative freedom, he still put some reasonable nerfs in here, because he could, if he really wanted to go crazy, he could have let him pull a gentle and just been like, gently rebound and like elasticize the air and walked away. Like, he could have done that. So even when people are complaining about like, oh, this Toon Force is too much, he didn't even take it that far. He still at least had to grab the ground.
I don't know why everyone everyone's tripping. I don't even like this Toon Force reference. Like, I mean, I get it, but I'm also just like, again, I feel like everyone's limiting. You guys are limiting your imagination, bro. Y'all are sleeping on Oda. Y'all are sleeping on Oda. Y'all are sleeping on 1,000+ chapters, and y'all are still sleeping on Oda.
Because my thing is that One Piece has always been like more cartoony. Like its art style has always been more cartoony.
Yeah. It's always been like, have you noticed each character has their own weird aesthetic? Not everyone has the same type of same proportion one note.
And he doubled down on that after the training arc. Like he was like, I'm gonna grow out. This person's here. I'm going to. Frankie's not just a cyborg. This man is not even human anymore. It's just like again. It's the constant playing of like there's large people, but there's also giants in the world. Like there's people who naturally get to 7 feet, but then there's 10-foot tall people. There's 20-foot tall people in this world.
You have people just casually 25 feet tall, and it's like that's not a giant, and it's like, huh?
What you mean 25 feet in a giant? No, he's just a big person. Excuse me.
And what's funny is that like what this also does is kind of make me look back at like Chopper, but one of the because like he's got the Hito no Mi too. And I started thinking
questions about that I was gonna bring up to you guys in a few. So yeah.
So my stance on Chopper's Hito no Mi is that part of those like point inspirations are partially based off the different human races we see. Like when he had Arm Point, that was based off the 3-arm tribe.
The 3-arm tribe.
Jump Point was the long leg tribe, and because he's a reindeer, we're not noticing that he's replicating the different races of human.
I think there's a strong tie back. Again, everyone has their piece in developing who Luffy is. And I think I was saying that I was telling my bro, Damien, I was telling him that like there's still certain people's stories that need to get flushed out and the roles that they have to play in Luffy's development. And while while Chopper's backstory has been cemented and his role has been cemented, the purpose that he has to play in the next steps have not been. He's the least touched of the characters. We, like I said, I get Frankie would be the next person, but we're gonna get another ship. We're gonna get something, and it might correction, let me not say that, let me say what I said before. Even if we don't get another ship, Frankie is going to be very instrumental. It's not even just the mods. Frankie's going to be very instrumental in building something that is super key to unlocking One Piece.
Yes.
There's something that needs to be created, and that's what Frankie is there for. Brook is another person that we haven't fully explored their backstory. We more or less know what Nami is. Nami's role is already Nami's. No, I was getting there. I got you.
She's a key to what she's about to do.
Nami has been quiet as well. And then my bro reminded me, he was like, we don't know where Nami came from.
Yeah,
we actually know nothing about Nami.
I had retweeted this.
We know the least about Nami.
I quote tweeted something about this recently, actually, where if you look, it was like this straw hat, and it was like birthplace. It was like this person was born here, this person was born here, and it was saying like Robin was born in O'Hara. It was saying like Frankie was born in like the Grand Line, and it was just saying like these people are born here. And then it even said like birthplace for Sanji, North Blue. But then Luffy, specifically Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, and Nami did not have their birthplace listed. What they had instead listed was just from this place. That was it.
Yeah, like
so it's like
East Blue, but nothing else.
Right, like it was like from Fuchsia Village, East Blue, but
right.
So that's clearly not where Luffy was born. From this island, and we know Nami wasn't born in the village that she was in, and we know that her Bellemere was at least a captain in the Marines, so she could have spent some time in the Grand Line and decided and opted into coming back with Nami. So we don't know where she got Nami actually.
Yep. We also know what else did we out? We know that Brook is a descendant of some type of royalty. There's so much there. There's so much there that has not been fully rectified or flushed out about our crew.
And like Usopp, we don't know where he's actually from. We just know where he landed, and we know that Yasopp left him, and we know that Yasopp was famous before he got recruited by Shanks.
Yep.
Which means that again, there's a meta world to One Piece.
So talking about Shanks,
Usopp might be a descendant of somebody that's not even from the main places that we consider to be the One Piece world right now.
as far as I'm concerned, Usopp is going to be confirmed to be a descendant of Nolan the Liar.
I have a feeling you are right about
So
this.
I have a feeling that too. But since we brought up Shanks, now that we see the fruit, and now the word government, in the first couple of pages, I have a question. Now that we know about it, Shanks saved the devil fruit, not Luffy first, or mix of both.
Okay, so I feel like I'm now leaning far more towards he saved the devil fruit, specifically because you can't convince me that Shanks raided a CP9 ship and landed in and has the ability to access the highest chamber
Of the world
and
government.
he didn't know about what he was doing or what fruit he had. Like, I have just a really hard time believing.
Yeah, like there's no way that you left the devil fruit unattended and let Luffy eat it, and then when he was about to get eaten by the shark, but the king, bam, I'm drawing blank.
You're not wrong in thinking that. However,
Like
you could
Shanks,
be wrong. It could actually still be I'm not fully off the fact that Luffy eating that was a coincidence.
I don't think Luffy.
I don't think it
was on purpose, but I don't think Shanks
it
was like, no, I gotta protect this asset now.
Yes. Yeah, like he knew that he had to
Yes.
protect it because of the fruit and because Luffy he probably knew his name was Monkey D. Luffy. Shanks probably knew that was his son of Monkey D. Dragon. So it was a mix of many variables. It could be the fruit, it could be Luffy because the son of the Monkey D. Dragon, or it could be the Will D.
I do
It could be any
want to know
variable.
Shanks's connection to Dragon, because there has to be some connection there to some extent. I
want there to be a Shanks connection to Dragon,
even if it's
because
just
then
that
he's
they've
not a
met,
snitch.
even just that they've met before. I just want to know they had to have met before at some point, and I just kind of want to know a little bit more about that, because again, there's a reason that Shanks is as deep as he is with a lot of things. Shanks knows everyone's dirt.
I'm a big believer the Shanks was descended from a celestial dragon, and he might have even like he wouldn't have been recruited during the God Valley incident, I don't think, because based on when the One Piece is supposed to have been found, it is it's a few years later. The Shanks was like 12 when that happened, so it would have been like 10 years after the God Valley.
When
incident,
Shanks' adventure starts, doesn't align with the way that things have been presented us to this point.
So do we think the Shanks movie is going to connect to what the anime is doing right now currently as well? Because a lot of people are also hoping for that, where this Shanks movie will give us this flashback or more in-depth story of his character.
I think Film Red has to show us some of this stuff.
The last two movies definitively have been gearing towards giving us more clues about One Piece. I think it is imperative and essential that that's what happens in Red. I think it is imperative and essential for that to happen.
We got the Laugh Tale reveal and a lot of what went into the fight with Bullet mirrors what was going into the fight with Kaido, from like the team up across different areas and different forces, to the idea that, you know, the just having multiple members of the worst generation there, to instead of him, you know, doing like Bullet did and using the clank fruit to turn all the stuff into a mech, him at least like lifting up the island in a way that would cause destruction to another island, effectively like letting him just waste it if he feels like it, etc. So it's like we had a lot of little tie-ins that it was like, oh, like once you rewatch Stampede and you look at some of the stuff that's happened, it's like, okay, yeah, this was kind of alluding to that. Even like Kid using his awakening finally, and like making the damn punk and all that other stuff. Good stuff, but with this one, I think we need a little bit more of those canon reveals in a non-canon scenario, and getting a bit of backstory on Shanks, figuring out why he has the ability to just waltz into the Gorosei. Because like when you look at that page, you're like, man, I figured given your position, you wouldn't be worried about politics. Given your position, like it's the Reverie, but because it's you, we're making time for you, where it kind of feels like Shanks, the most outlandish, but somehow like on point theory I could think of is Shanks being the direct descendant of Emu. because
So-
that would explain so much.
Mm.
And
So
like,
that has been two of my theories, that he's a descendant of Emo or a descendant of one of the important type of celestial dragons. Because for you to be walking in like that and they don't stop you,
It would like I
you
never
are-
thought about it. Like I've heard people say, but it have to be Emu. It cannot
like,
be anybody else
it
because
has to be that.
there would be no reason to respect any of the other celestial dragons to that degree.
And we have seen people that are
Which means
descendants of the
in
Celestials.
actuality,
they have gone
Shanks
away.
is a celestial
Like Dofi.
dragon.
Yeah, like
In
Dofi.
essence, Shanks is a celestial dragon. That is
Yeah.
the synopsis.
that's the only acceptable answer, because there's no black male in the world that makes you so valuable that you can do this. So it has to be a special privilege,
Yeah.
especially because if we keep it a full stack, and this is also why I'm going to say, like, you know, sometimes people are like, well, Dragon can't be impressive because you've ran from Blackbeard. But like Blackbeard had the ability to just destroy an island without landing on it, thanks to the Gura Gura no Mi,
Right?
and
So,
thanks
like,
to the
do
Shadow
much
Fruit. Like if
about
you
it.
combine them, like
The other thing is that people always act like I hate Teach, but like he was
Same.
already strong, guys. Like he was already
the
a
scar
formidable
he gave
pirate.
Shanks was before
Yes,
Shanks was like a Yonko, but still, it
he
easily
was
could have been when
already
he
a
was
formidable.
dueling.
He was one of the top 10s that were part of the generation that was that combined force. Again, if you did not watch Stampede, please go watch Stampede. It really kind of pointed out that fact of why, just briefly, just why that Teach is that guy. And then you gave him a broken power, and then he was like, you know what? While I have this broken power, I'm going to take another broken ass power.
And that's the other thing too, is that this is also why I don't think Teach has Conqueror's Haki though, because I think one of the ways that Luffy's going to keep his Devil Fruit active the entire fight against Teach is by creating Conqueror's Haki barrier so that they never make physical contact.
Mm-hmm. I also think I have a wild theory about that in regards to Gear 5th, but yes, continue.
But the thing with Teach is that if you read the Ace novels, Ace heavily suggests that Teach would have been fine to be a Yonko commander before he even got the Yami Yami no Mi. He straight up he asked him directly, like, why don't you lead the second division? The same division that Odin led.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Teach has all this buildup to be that guy while simultaneously just being kind of a coward. And you can be both.
Nah,
he
was a coward because he wanted the number one spot. It's not that he was a coward because he was afraid to fight. He's a coward because his targets were the top of the food chain.
Yeah, like
that's what it was.
He was hungry, and going back to the aspect that people in a flashback of Odin showing that he was never sleeping. He like people many theories about Black Teach.
And that's part of what makes him running from Akainu even make sense, because if you think about it, if you pull Akainu into you and he just turns into magma, yes, you can technically touch him, but the Logia, the Yami Yami no Mi doesn't protect you like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just pull him in a close range and then not assume he's going to just launch a bunch of fucking magma at you at point blank range.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really let him get away with what he would want to do.
Yeah, there's a reason. There's a reason he tried to get Ace's power first. There's a reason he wanted Ace's power first. There's a reason he wanted Ace's power first. There's a reason that he was content with just taking Whitebeard's power and leaving. There's a reason for that. Come on, why? Come on, fuck again. Forget Shanks being there. Excuse the cursing, but like he could have just wiped everybody out at that moment. He had all the power to wipe out the Marines in that very moment. He could have wiped out every single pirate and every single Marine there and just blinked them out of existence with those two food powers.
And the fact that also one thing that I will say is that the fact that Sengoku was canceling out his quakes with just shockwaves from the Hito Hito no Mi model Buddha is another reason why I think that like the Conqueror's Haki waves are going to be coming into a play here. Like just to mirror that fight with like Buddha, and both using human fruits that are tied to deities that are mythical zones, which Luffy being a Zoan does justify a lot of what's happened throughout the series, especially his recovery time. Now, I do have a question though, because it does get firmly established that zone fruits have their own will, which justifies all the stuff like.
I was gonna bring up from page I think it was page 4 and 5 about that government conversation, because that has a lot of questions, because they literally said that in every era the world government has attempted to recover the gum fruit, and not once has it ever succeeded for 800 years.
In 800
so I'm
years.
like, so a minute. So in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. So you knew Nico Robin was inside the Straw Hats group back in Ennis Lobby, and you asked Rob Lucci to grab Nico Robin. You already had them at the gate of hell to grab Luffy too, and you knew that he had the gum fruit. So I'm like, why didn't you just grab his ass too and just brought him to the gate of hell?
They did not expect. So here's what it is. Here's my understanding.
So
here's
like,
what I'm gonna give you.
That's my question to the world
The
government.
power
itself,
has existed before, has manifested, and has not produced Joy Boy in 800 years. I don't think Luffy's the first person to have the gum in 800 years. I think he's the first person to manifest it to this extent. So what I think they were hoping for, and what was reasonable, was that eventually Luffy would have just phased out, or he would have capped at a certain point. Maybe they make him a Yonko. That's why that system was there, and they would have been able to control Luffy. I think that's what they were aiming for, which is why you see this whole thing that's happening, which again, unfortunately for them, leads to the awakening of Joy Boy, is they were like, wait a minute, he's kind of getting too strong, and he clearly has zero intent of being submissive to anybody. This isn't what we were going for. We need to take them out. Matter of fact, if we can kill both of them at the same time, if we get rid of Kaido, Big Mom, and we get rid of the worst gen, extra bonus for us. We can reset the world. And like my bro keeps saying, people keep forgetting that the Marines are corrupt. There's two different factions of the Marines right now. The Marines aren't even a solid single entity. They never have been, actually, for a long time. Like, we've been introduced to them.
And also, real quick, because you brought something up, and like when you talk about, because they were gonna annex Wano if Kaido and Big Mom fell. But specifically, one of the things that I'm thinking about here is that if you, before the Reverie, like when you get around like the Fifth Emperor or somewhere like that, Shanks is like, we can meet again. Then during the Reverie, he's like, I need to tell you about a certain pirate. And it kind of seems like Shanks knew the importance of the gum fruit and told on Luffy, and that does feel like where this is going. But that does raise a question of if Shanks is going to try to meet Luffy because he's going to try to get the fruit back. But another small symbol that I wanted to point out is that Wano is based off Japan, the land of the rising sun, and this is the arc and the country in which we get to see Luffy embody the sun god, which Wano was supposed to be a love letter to the Japanese fan base also. So it's like all these small details coming together to make like the justification for that deification.
And I'm sorry. Do we all know what Japan translates to? The actual name Japan, Nihon, translates to? Go ahead and look that up. Again, it's like you said, it's innate callback to the love of, you know, this land. and like people said, the thing is, I don't know how long or when Oda started researching this, but there's a lot of deep-rooted connection and research that was done.
And that's why he takes his breaks, and that's what I love about it.
From the beginning and inception of this story, there has been a great deal of research. There has been a concept that has been sitting there forever. Oh man, Sky Island. Please bring back my boy Andrew. Please bring him back.
So one thing that I'll say is that one of my favorite things to say about One Piece is that it's secret. It's not actually a pirate manga. It's a Yakuza manga with a pirate aesthetic. And this is one of those things that when you look more into like how the Yakuza operates, just as a fun thing, because I was reading an article and like looking into some of this stuff. The Yakuza recently frauded like Wells Fargo Bank for like $400 million on a loan back in like 2016. Because when you deal with Japanese businesses, you have to basically check every potential company tied to it. Because anytime a Yakuza company borrows money from you, you will not get paid back. What they usually do is they just go and recruit money from the other people to pay you back. So you make sure your other loans get paid on time.
Exactly.
So it's like they'll make all your other loans get paid back on time, but any money you give them is gone. and that's just kind of how it's been. But like when you look at the way that like Whitebeard works, the fact that they do the exchange of the cups, it's always been a very Japanese series. And the cup exchange is all about the Oyabon, like the top leader of the Yakuza in that area, and the way they would actually like build up towns and small businesses and have legitimate business fronts, similar to how like, Whitebeard has farms and all that other stuff in his territory. So it's like
the animal tribe, the two top leaders being a Neko and an Inu.
Yeah,
the transforming to the moon
is a
there is just so much things present. Every step is intentional.
His name
every
is
step
Nika,
is intentional.
the sun god.
Every character is intentional. The name of every character is intentional. Like again, like even a simpler one, Frankenstein experimenting on self, like transforming it. Guys, like it's literally everything. Like this man, I don't know when he has time to even be a normal human being. I just don't understand, because it's clearly his life work. One Piece is his life work.
It is, and I can't wait to see what other you brought up, Kena, right now about the moon. Right now we're gonna focus on the sun. His name is Nika, the sun god, which I love the name. I can't wait for people to try to mispronounce and say the other type of N-word, because it's gonna happen.
It's coming. It's
gonna happen. That's what
I'm surprised the internet didn't break already from that, but I'm glad it didn't. But yeah, no, I promise you, Eclipse being the symbolism of a cataclysmic destruction, or the releasing of, or the unlocking of treasures. There's so much things here that come into play based off of the dynamics that are finally kind of cemented. The Sunny goal. Come on, guys.
The 1,000 Sunny.
My sword, the thousand. It's been 800 years since the 1,000 Sunny.
Like that was one of the things that I was going to talk about in the video that I wanted to do a while ago and just didn't get around to. But it was basically like, Sun God Nika, do the answers lie in Egypt? And one of the things that this highlights is that if you look at a lot of, like, for example, Nami is very similar to the Egyptian goddess Bast, and that she's the cat burglar. She has weather powers.
And
Zoro
with
is
the hands.
Yeah, Zoro is actually similar to an Egyptian god, one that's a lot lesser known, but one known as Sopdu. And Sopdu was a deity that was supposed to guard the pharaoh's tomb, more specifically the pharaoh's teeth, or in this case, Luffy's smile. And his symbol was a triangle, so the three shapes, the three swords forming the triangle of the guardian person who protects Luffy's smile, more or less. And then, of course, you have like people like Frankie, and then, like, of course, you can kind of start slotting in different deities, because One Piece is a globe-trotting story. It's just that when you look at that base, that scar under Luffy's eye, reminiscent of Horus, it kind of all comes together. And you think about how
the main crew is definitively Egyptian lore inspired. I'm not saying that parts of the rest of the world, but definitively, even Jinbe,
those first three,
even Jinbe,
yep,
definitively. Which is why I tell people I would not be surprised if Enru ended up joining back and ended up becoming a part of the Straw Hats. That is not just my in-head fantasy. Like I have a reason for saying that.
That one.
I have a reason. It's my theory. That's why you haven't heard it. I'm meta now. No, but like like I said, I think there's a reason again that Carrot has to join the crew. I think that's the next person that has to join the crew, because
Luffy needs the races. Like
I was gonna say it.
Long arm, like those are all just different types of human. But we need, like, I kind of want us to have a Mink. I want us to have, and by extension, he's got Hiruden. He's got Hiruden, so he already has a giant. Technically, he has a crew of giants that work under him, even if it wasn't his choice to make them do that.
Yeah,
he has,
fleet, of course,
within the Grand Fleet, because you also have that long leg, long arm tribe boxing, like that fighting club that is under Luffy now. He has people of royalty, like Cavendish was a prince. He has that.
And multiple princesses and princes, like.
And that's the other thing, is like Wano is Luffy's territory after this arc.
Hell yes.
Yeah, because he's the guardian. It's been his territory. He's been trying to unintentionally and intentionally. He's been saying, "I will be the vanguard of this place," without ever saying it. He's been saying, "I will be the Odin of this place."
So
I will be the protector of the people. Luffy's always been the protector of the people because he's just always been about what he feels is the right thing to do.
And so you got it's like you got that territory. You know, Bartolomeo took let's just call him Bartholomew. Took his took territory from Shanks for him. And we know that Fishman Island was straight up like, oh, Luffy ran through Big Mom's territory. It's all time to rep the set. Like
all of Fishman is Straw Hat. The whole it's Straw Hat Underwater City. That's what it's called now.
The first son of the sea joined, and that's what you got now. It's like, oh damn, Jinbei's with them. I guess that's where we at.
Like it just makes sense. Like people read the arcs by arcs and not the stories as a one continuation moving as like I forgot who said it. I think it was Rayleigh or I forgot who was it, but Rayleigh or somebody was explaining Nami how when you get out the water sprout and you go to the next island, each story connects to another. Where each of the Straw Hats, Chopper and everyone else they are fine, it connects. Like you brought up, Chopper, when he went to his big form as a giant, Chopper has never gone to that form. So of course he don't understand how to use a giant form. So each form, like Luffy, Gear Third, like you brought Kenny, everything connects. At first, I've rewatched One Piece like 6 times when it was up to 600 or 700 episodes back then years ago. Now up to its 1,144 chapters. Me rewatching it up to Thriller Bark, I have seen and noticed things now on this rewatch with my girl than I have done any rewatch before, because you notice things that's been foreshadowed.
Yeah, because it wasn't important.
Everything.
It wasn't important then. Like there was no reason for you as the audience. It was no reason for us as the audience to deem it important in the moment of watching it. For those of us who have been like, oh wait, I like people that have been just actively recalling that stuff. It's been like, oh shit, I kind of remember this, and oh yeah, that was kind of a thing. But like again, this is the tie back to Oda being the GOAT. And there's a reason that One Piece is outselling Batman and about to surpass Superman in sales. There's a reason for that. And yet y'all still asking why people waste their time reading One Piece. I'm sorry, y'all read Naruto, y'all watched all these other things, y'all watched Grey's Anatomy, but got a problem with One Piece. Just say you don't want to read it and move on. We don't gotta talk about it.
Here's my question. One thing
wait, I just want to say to what Kenny just brought up. It's crazy because I think Aniki brought up in the beginning, and how people that don't read One Piece last week start to tweet about One Piece or start to discuss about One Piece. I'm like, wait, so you were gonna talk about One Piece now because all about the Joy Boy stuff that brought up after many type of theories later, you're gonna finally jump back on One Piece wagon. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fuck. So this is how it's gonna be once the One Piece is revealed, or once the laughs are real. Everyone that be like, oh, I never read it, but now I'm gonna binge it because of this hype ass moment. I'm like, no, like just read it because you have the interest. Yes, hype moments are there, but how you gonna read a hype moment without the context, without the actually backstory of what you just read? It's hype for us, me, Aniki, Kenny, Sam, or anybody that's read One Piece for years or months or weeks. If you just read the story, you hype for that moment. But if you just didn't read it because you took a break, but you read the hype moment just because it was hype, how does that entertain you?
You're missing pieces. Like also, someone's like, oh, everyone keeps saying that it takes 300 episodes to get good. And I was like, you are clearly asking people that don't like One Piece. If you're trying to get interested in One Piece, ask people that like One Piece.
Yeah.
One Piece is good for me. I just reread the first 10 chapters recently. It's good from chapter 1. People talk about it being slow paced. It's not slow paced. There are parts, I will say, as it gets into it, that aren't as fun as others. Every story is like that. Anyways, Aniki, you had a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, because I was looking at the awakening and stuff like that, like I said, pop back to last chapter, which I like the fact that we didn't spend too much time trying to have all these other characters fight and be exhausted, especially in the case of Law and Kid and Sanji. Just let them stay rested, but give that moment of fear and Marco kind of protecting Nami and keeping that. But we are on a timer, and one of the things that kind of threw me off last chapter, and I think it's kind of highlighted a bit this chapter too, is that Momo stopped pulling Onigashima.
Yeah, I saw that. I noticed that. And that made me question, why?
And I've seen people be like, maybe we'll get the like he'll bounce it back. But at this point, I'm like, man, I don't even know if that'll work. Because that's still a bunch of force hitting the city. And like obviously because it's tomb physics, he can make it work that way. But the idea of Luffy having enough mastery over his awakening that he can turn the whole island rubbery so that it doesn't destroy like the flower capital doesn't completely seem feasible. So you gotta think that that might be what Zunisha's ultimately here for, is to just be like, thank you, I'm gonna set this down now.
So there's a question that I saw that could connect to where you're saying, Aniki. It said, with a theory, do you really think Roger found the One Piece?
Yeah, I was reading that, and
I think the question is why y'all think One Piece is what y'all think it is. That's the real question for me.
One of the most interesting theories I've seen on the One Piece is the idea that it's just a bunch of sake. And it's specifically like an 800-year brew. And it's supposed to be made for a party because one of Luffy's big goals is to have a big party. And he's like, there's no point doing these adventures if I don't get to party, blah, blah, blah. Because if you look at chapters 999 and 1000, it's named The Sake I Brewed With You, Straw Hat Luffy. And so they're like, what if that's the final thing, like to get the One Piece? And what I don't think the One Piece is what anybody in the story seems to think it is. I don't think it's a treasure that is valuable for its monetary worth. I don't think it's, about necessarily having a giant weapon. I don't think it's any of those things. I think it contains the history of the Void Century, because we've been told there's like 30 poneglyphs, and we haven't put enough effort into collecting all the poneglyphs for me to believe that that's not going to matter. But also, like, we have to get that payoff because there's only 4 road poneglyphs, and there's like 30 of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if there's 30 poneglyphs, we got to get the rest of what these are for anyway. Most
of them are collected somewhere though.
And
we are aware that the world government has a quantity, undisclosed quantity of them already.
So we know
copies of them, and we know that some of them should be destroyed. If I'm not mistaken, a couple of them should not be in actual existence anymore.
They're supposed to be indestructible. Because if you remember, the only reason why
when I say not in existence, I don't mean like broken. I mean like inaccessible, not in existence. I guess like, inaccessible would be a better way of saying it.
Like just dropped from the top of like the red line into, which that's another thing that I've just real quick, because it never gets talked about enough. But couldn't you, in theory, get to Lodestar by getting to the top of the red line of Reverse Mountain, and then
go the opposite side?
Yes.
Like, I've always thought about that.
Like instead of going up, and then
I think it's not possible based off of the way the current is supposed to flow. But I also always wondered why not.
Yeah, because I'm like, gravity sends it this way.
I feel like that might be one of those key things that were just left that way because our goal was to see our crew go in a direction. So there was no need to focus on going the opposite way with it. But that might be a very, very key point later on.
Because the way I look at it is,
the government made it happen where you cannot go the other way, where people could only go one way. So maybe it was the government power that they did something with that.
Because think about the Sunny real quick, specifically. If they wanted to, they could just turn on the front cannon, not use stabilizers, and if they got to the top of Reverse Mountain with that, fly off and then start falling straight down. And like you can worry about like the fear of destruction and all that other stuff, but where we're at now, Luffy could probably just wrap his legs around the entire ship and hold it and like slowly stretch down as it gets pulled and then still land safely. So I'm like, there's got to be a little extra something to do with the Reverse Mountain. Like maybe even the key to getting to Lodestar and beyond that isn't about like the whatever Laugh Tale. However, it's going beyond that and going under Reverse Mountain, just like you go under Fishman, like under Marijois to get to Fishman Island. And when you get to Reverse Mountain, there's something like a cave structure or something like that.
There may be a space, another space that exists that we don't even understand. There might be a space in between the spaces and I'm not even trying to say that to like be funny. Like there just might be a whole other plane of existence that is being blocked. Kind of like Vash was saying, very intentionally. But I ain't gonna hold y'all. I'm looking at the time and I'm wondering, anybody got any final thoughts on the chapter?
Yeah,
because I definitely got to do some other stuff too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was gonna do that segue, so I appreciate Kenny for that. But it just shows how well in depth this chapter was, and it shows how much Oda has been frustrated. Because I've heard from content creators, our friends, and from people in the timeline that Wano has been up or down pacing this, but I'm like, I hate it when people just view the parts or just view the arc, but don't view the whole story as a picture. Like each arc sets up for the past of what happened, and also sets up the present, and also sets up the future. That's how storytelling is made, and that's how I see it. And I know other people see it as the One Piece as a whole. So I appreciate what this chapter did, and it makes us ask more questions from what we have been told in this chapter about the government, about the 800 years, the Gum fruit. But then there's more to it, and I love how every time we have tried to theorize about the moon, about the sun, and now we find the name of about Joe Boy, about the sun god. Like, it just makes more questions about the One Piece itself. So it just brings up that more of a hype.
Yep. Last thing I want to say about it is just this. In theory, like my stance is, you don't have to love the goofiness of Gear 5, but don't pretend like it doesn't make sense for One Piece, especially not for who like Luffy's character has been. And the one thing that this is the one thing that I kind of want people to think about, but I don't think we necessarily have to sit here and ponder it all heavy, because we know that all Zoan Devil Fruits have free wills, which we see that like when the Awakened Ones and Impel Down, to me, it's very likely that their Devil Fruits took over the personality more, and that's why they were so simple-minded. Now, my question for you and for the audience just to think about going forward is, has the Luffy we've always known largely been Nika, or is Nika very similar to Luffy and it hasn't mattered as a result? Because
I think it's
either way.
I think it's the latter more so than the former.
Yeah,
I think it's the latter more so than the former. And I don't think I don't foresee Joy Boy overtaking Luffy. I'll say it like that.
Same with my answer, because we have seen Luffy's flashback, and Luffy has been reckless. We have seen Luffy has always, trying to connect to people, like with Ace, like with Sabo. We have seen Luffy, when he first got his fruit, that he was reckless with his fruit, but he wanted to continue trying to fight. So it showed. And when he wasn't even aware of Gear 2, Gear 3, and he was just with Zoro and others, he was his laughing self all the time. So it showed that even with Shanks, when he didn't eat the fruit yet, he has a crybaby, a coward to some extent, but he wanted to do the best he can. Now that he has the fruit, and now that we know about Nika, the sun god, we know about Luffy having very similarities, because it's interesting how Kaido didn't even react. He just said, "Oh, I do apologize about that idiot." So Kaido knows something and sees that they're both very similar, but very different personality. As who was before, it was Luffy, and now this is Nika, the sun god. So Kaido did notice that there's a difference.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think I was kind of alluding to it earlier, that I feel like there is some type of unity. I think there's a reason that I don't think the Gum No Fruit has manifested Joy Boy in 800 years for a reason. I think Luffy is a very particular and peculiar type of person and entity, and it took that personality, that certain descendants and lineage, and this timing for all of it to happen. I would like us to kind of flush out more how people like Roger felt that this person was coming so soon, because it seems like even the world government, I feel like this prediction thing, we got to go back to the whole prediction thing. Why was it foretold? And again, what are the governments? What is that other dirt that the government and the world government is holding on to? So like for me, like I said, I think Luffy is Luffy. I think Luffy is Luffy. I think Joy Boy has revealed itself in some manner, shape, or form. Again, you talk about, like you said, they having their own will. So Joy Boy being the will of the devil fruit itself. I think that is also just, like I said, I think there's some type of duality there. I don't see Luffy being overridden by it in any kind of way, shape, or form. I'm also super curious because of that, what the kickback, if any, might be from accessing this power, and how easily Luffy gets back to doing this. Because typically when Luffy unlocks something, he just has it. He gets better at it and the kickback decreases. But typically, like it's like I said, it's just like he unlocks it, he has it. Is this going to be the same way? Or does Luffy need to get beat within an inch of his life again, or pass an inch of his life? What are the ramifications for it? We've seen what it takes to unlock each of the other gears. We've never actually innately seen a gear be effectively activated like this. So it's going to be very interesting to see the kind of post results of what Gear 5 is to Luffy.
And that's actually a good point, because one of the things that I was wondering is like, man, what if Luffy never having thought bubbles was partially a manifestation of he doesn't need to think because Zone Fruit has will of own. So even if he doesn't think, it doesn't matter. Like, he'll always be able to do something. And with how this has gone, we saw, like, with the Awakening for Kid and Law, that it was like, this is a heavy stamina consumption thing. But in the case of Zone users, their fruits tend to give them extra endurance, extra stamina. Right. And while Luffy's words say, like, don't sweat it, let's finish this up. And he's like, I can fight a bit longer, I believe is what he says.
Yes.
Let's see if I can find it.
A bit longer. Yep.
So it's like, there's clearly some kind of timer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of how this is going to be handled going forward, because that's part of why, like, my Gear 6, Gear 7, Chopper has 7 points. I feel like it would make the most sense if we hit at least 6, because you could argue that his base form is Gear 1, or no stretching is Gear 0. Gear 1 is him being regular stretchy. Gear 2, Gear 3, Gear 4, Gear 5, Gear 6, and that would still be 7 points total. But the fact that we haven't seen it, like, outside of when the Conqueror's haki was just exploding everywhere, we haven't seen him use it yet in this form, makes me kind of feel like we got to see just a little more out of him, and then maybe see Kaido's awakening too. And then when we see Kaido pull out Awakening, Luffy will have his haki back.
If Kaido has Awakening.
If Kaido has Awakening.
Yeah,
Kaido has displayed.
The other thing is, remember that Kaido isn't affected specifically by haki. There's a whole other technique that had to be learned for Luffy to be able to even touch him. Yeah. So again, the idea that haki isn't even necessarily the most important factor in this current form. The same thing we talked about, like when we saw Luffy looking lifeless, like he didn't fully disengage himself. That's why, again, there's like a lot of people was like, Luffy's dead. And it's like, why would you think Luffy was dead there? But that's neither here nor there. Like I said, I agree with you fully on that point. There's more to be seen, period, from this form.
And one of the things that people said, and I agree with you, is like, they were like, this chapter seemed to indicate who had good observation haki, because you notice, like, Sanji is the first person we see, like, sitting up, like, hold up,
wait a minute.
And then you have, like, Kid Law. Yeah, like, then you have, like, Kid Law and Old Man Hyogoro, which it looks like he's back to his old man form and not in the big buff form anymore.
Yes. Yep. And he's not dead, because I thought he was going to be dead.
Along with Marco, and they're all like, all right, I sense something popping. And then we cut to Kaido, like, kind of being like, wait, what's going on up there? So there's clearly more to come, and I kind of expect, even if he doesn't name it Gear 6, I think the haki, like, we have to get one more clash of their wills, just because haki is supposed to be their will, and this is a story about overcoming other people's wills and the wills of tyrants, and, like, having your own freedom, and it just wouldn't be right to not also hit that point. And I'm guessing we were all just like Rip Bozo when Orochi died, because we didn't really touch that at all.
Oh, I didn't give a fuck about roaches. That's why I didn't even bring it up, and I didn't either. So
you said a roach died? They killed a roach? I missed it.
With that note, I assume like the last segment we bring up on Shonen Ronin was chapter of the week. I assume for it was One Piece, or because for me it was One Piece. I'm gonna just be straight up and honest that my chapter of the week was One Piece.
I'm trying to, because on one hand I always get spoiled on One Piece, so it's harder to evaluate it for me because I'm like, I got spoiled on this already. But at the same time, I do think One Piece is like the biggest payoff this week by far. Because we kind of talked about how like JJK set up that really huge, oh cool. And then it was like, all right, I'm not mad about it per se, but that other stuff would have been cool. And like My Hero was set up, and the same thing very much applies to Undead Unluck.
Very much similar across all three of them, being a very transitional setup type of chapter. So yeah, I would categorically, I'm glad we were able to talk about One Piece today because it was the chapter of the week for me, for sure.
Yeah, same here. Like for me, we haven't talked about One Piece on Shonen Ronin like a full type of chapter review, so it's nice to talk about it. If it happens next week, awesome. If it don't, no promises on that. But chapter of the week for me was One Piece. Even though I was like tiny bit spoiled, and it kind of motivated me to read and catch up to the last 40 or 80 chapters I was behind on. But it did motivate me to see what was going on that I was left out of. And it was hype moments, great moments, good character moments, and everything that was building up to Onigashima, the rooftop, and what's going on overall in Wano. So to see what Joe Boy and the whole conversation that has been going on over One Piece for the past 20 years and what this leads up to, and ask more questions about the world government, about devil fruits that maybe Joe Boy put himself inside the devil fruit. Like there's so many theories now more because of this chapter and the past two and everything. So it's just very intriguing. So for me, One Piece was definitely chapter of the week for sure. So Aniki, it's been a while for you here. So give your plugs. Where can people find you? Where can people pray and go see the priest of the church?
You can always find me at AnikiSmashFSP, whether that's on YouTube or you want to look me up on Twitter. Same thing. I think I have the same name on Instagram, but I post way less on IG. So if you're actually looking for content, you always want to be following either Twitter or YouTube, primarily focusing on My Hero. I do have quite a few ideas that I do need to just go ahead and make the videos for it and like sit down and get some time for it, because I'm pretty sure I figured out how curse techniques are made in JJK. Got some stuff I want to talk about with Law and just in general. So we want to do some more stuff. Don't want to be pigeonholed on just My Hero, though. I think we can, as you guys can see, anybody who's watching now, that we can discuss a variety of series just because I happen to focus on one, which really that's because I don't know if you've noticed this, but for as big as My Hero is, there's only like
a lot of views.
It doesn't have a lot of views, but also there's not a lot of big content creators that like are centered on My Hero, which in turn means that My Hero doesn't get as much like actual deep diving as it actually deserves as a series, partially also because the Japanese aspect of manga and like the cultural relevance with like that's in it is often slept on by Western audiences, where we kind of reduce things to the lens that we can see it. Like, and My Hero is especially a victim of that because people kind of go, well, we know Hori likes Star Wars and we know he likes Marvel, so that's the primary focus that we're going to look at that and just kind of see it that way. So a lot of the underpinnings of the cultural stuff get missed. So if you like that kind of content, definitely want to check it out. If you want to see what I'm really cooking with on a rabbit run, then just go on Twitter and check my pin, give you an idea of some of the stuff we talk about.
Yep, go check Aniki, the Church of Mitchell, and check the future content that he'll be bringing. Check and shout out to Project Manga. They was here on the chat, so big shout out to them. Kenny, where can the people go find you, and what else you do?
Yes. You can follow me on all social medias. That includes TikTok and Quirk Chat at KendellxAnime, KendallxAnime. And you can also follow the Conquer movement. We out here. There's more things to come. Y'all gonna have more handles soon. Y'all gonna be sick of me. Watch.
Definitely, for sure. So you can find me at LegendDVash everywhere else. I do production. I have a life. I do Shonen Ronin on Sundays. I'm sometimes on the anime podcast. If not, I'm on the C4's Villains. If not, I'm planning to do reactions again, depending on Sam's time with him or by myself. on the Anime Lately YouTube side, so you'll be seeing reactions for the spring anime, and then me and Sam will be making time to catch up to the old animes. But it will
Hunter
be
X Hunter.
and Hunter x Hunter soon as well. Once Abe starts to learn some editing, I will have him edit those videos because I do plan to do Hunter x Hunter reactions. If the manga ever comes back in 2025, then maybe that too as well. So who knows on that. But other than that, it was great to have Kendall himself here, and AnikiSmash. I appreciate you guys being here. And that'll be
glad you had me.
for the stream. See you guys the next one next week.
Later.